Chapter 2692. The restriction formation inside the dark moon star was broken by Yi Qinghan's last strike. As time went by, the sun began to shine on the dark moon star. The dazzling light made it hard to open one's eyes. The entire Dark Moon clan was extremely unaccustomed to such an environment. It affected their retinas and distorted the space they saw. The scorching sun shone on Yi Qinghan, who was covered in blood. He had not woken up for half a year. His blood was gradually solidifying. The Dharma was still there, which meant that the aura of death had not occupied his bloodline and body. The wounds on Yi Qinghan's body had already formed scabs. Even the penetrating wounds caused by the secondary edge weapon of the Great Tao on his chest and back had healed. Fortunately, his heart and origin were not damaged. The injuries caused by the secondary edge weapon of the Great Tao were mostly healed in half a year under the care of Yi Qinghan's strong body and survival instinct, as well as the 9-linked ring gourd. Bush. Yi Qinghan's fingertips moved slightly and opened his misty eyes. The blood had solidified his eyes. His body moved slightly and the dark moon chain on his limbs made a crisp sound. The heavy dark moon ring locked his body like a shackle. All order was suppressed by the halo of the dark moon. Yi Qinghan slowly raised his head, and only then did he realize his current situation. Was he caught? Yi Qinghan furrowed his brows as he tried to recall his last memory. It seemed to be a long time ago when that blade had broken through the shackles and completed the most powerful attack he had ever made, killing Lord Taishin. However, he had also fainted because of the secondary great-edged weapon of the Great Path. He didn't know how long he had been unconscious, where he was, or who had captured him. Is it Su Tian Cliff? Why didn't he kill me? Yi Qinghan wanted to speak, but he could not even speak. His throat seemed to be blocked and he could only think slowly. Yi Qinghan's eyes were stinging. He could not adapt to the scorching sun. He raised his heavy head and felt that his neck was about to break. It was extremely strenuous. He looked at the huge square in the distance. There was not even a shadow. The images in front of him overlapped and he was at a loss. Is there anyone? Yi Qinghan's hoarse voice, which didn't sound like a human's, sounded weak and feeble. No one responded, perhaps because his voice was too soft. After a long time, Yi Qinghan gradually adapted to the blinding sunlight. His body struggled a few more times, but the dark moon halo tightened. His body landed on the ground, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not break free from the chains. The 4 pillars seemed to be connected to the dark moon planet. He could not move them at all. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and used his right arm to pull at the dark moon chain. The chain was pulled taut, but the pillar did not budge. Perhaps it was the restlessness of the iron chains that attracted the attention of others. A dozen people appeared in the square, and they were all members of the Dark Moon clan. Their faces were very beautiful, but their eyes were very distinguishable. Yi Qinghan looked at this group of people in shock. They were all very young, and there were both men and women. Their eyes were filled with shock, awe, and fear. It was as if they were looking at a foreign race, a rare creature. They did not dare to come close to him. Did the Dark Moon clan capture me? Yi Qinghan was a little surprised. He did not expect the Dark Moon clan to capture him. Moreover, they captured him when his life was uncertain. They clearly wanted to take his life. I want to see the Dark Moon clan leader. Yi Qinghan painfully raised his head and looked at the dozen or so young Dark Moon clan members. He said hoarsely, "The clan leader is not here. What do you want to say to this king?" A member of the royal family who seemed to be of noble status pretended to be calm and said arrogantly. Yi Qinghan frowned and looked at the crowd. He asked in a low voice, "Why did you capture me?" "Because you are a foreign race. You have destroyed the order of the Dark Moon planet. You are an uncontrollable person. That is why the elder ordered to capture you." The young prince replied angrily. Feud Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His internal organs were tingling with pain. He could not summon any strength from his body. He was only relying on his physical body to heal his injured body. At this moment, he could not summon any combat power. "Can you inform your elder?" Yi Qinghan asked tentatively. With cracked lips, A battered and exhausted appearance and ragged clothes, Yi Qinghan was just a beggar at this moment. A very battered beggar. He no longer had the imposing manner of an emperor. If it was before, he would not need to discuss with these people. Who do you think you are? You use such words when you see this king. You don't even have a heart of reverence. Why should this king help you? The young prince ridiculed with disdain. Yi Qinghan shook his head and no longer communicated with these juniors. That dark moon heavenly sovereign would definitely come looking for him if she knew that he had woken up. Soon after, Yi Qinghan lowered his head and did not say anything. He wanted to mobilize his power to speed up the healing of his injured body. However, the power he could mobilize was very little. The order within his body was suppressed by the dark moon halo. When those youngsters saw that Yi Qinghan no longer paid attention to them, they cursed a few words and left. Half a day later, Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign appeared in the plaza with a dignified expression. Apart from the Dark Moon Crown Prince and the Patriarch, he was the strongest. He had a suppressive aura in his bones. What is your name? The two of them looked at each other, not knowing if they should enter this boundary steel. Where did the boundary steel lead to? Did Yi Qinghan enter the boundary steel? Everything was unknown. If Yi Qinghan was here, the two of them might be glad. However, if he wasn't, wouldn't it be a waste of effort? Instead, they would waste a great opportunity to save Yi Qinghan. The two of them looked at each other and asked in unison, "What should we do?" Chapter 2693. Time flew by and 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. No new experts came to this border region. Yi Qinghan had been locked in the plaza for 10 years. Only an extremely beautiful young girl brought him some water and food every day. She even took the initiative to help him clean the foreign objects on his body. The girl looked to be around 18 or 19 years old. Her cultivation was also not bad. Looking at her clear eyes, she didn't seem to have any purpose. She should be purely looking at Yi Qinghan's pity. Cleaning the foreign objects on his body every day allowed Yi Qinghan's body to be released. His recovery speed increased by a lot. The food was very good. It was rich in blood energy and replenished some energy. Perhaps because this girl's status was good and she didn't provide Yi Qinghan with pills or the like, Empyrean Dark Moon didn't stop her. 10 years was like a day. Yi Qinghan was somewhat moved. This girl was very persistent. She didn't even say a word to him during this period. Today, 10 years later, Yi Qinghan couldn't help but take the initiative to say, "Thank you for taking care of me for the past 10 years. If there is a chance, I will definitely repay this kindness." The young girl smiled and stood in front of Yi Qinghan. After feeding him a few mouthfuls of water, she replied in a crisp voice, "Esteemed one, don't take it to heart. It's fine as long as you don't resent the Dark Moon clan. Right now, there are no experts in the clan. The Empyrean Elder was also afraid that you would attack the Dark Moon clan, so he had no choice but to trap you." Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. After being trapped like this for 10 years, the pain caused by the injuries on his body was unimaginable. If it wasn't for this girl alleviating a lot of his pain in the past 10 years, the first thing he would do after breaking free would be to kill Empyrean Dark Moon. "Your grandfather is the Dark Moon clan's patriarch?" Yi Qinghan asked in a hoarse voice. The girl nodded and whispered, "Yes, I'm Princess Anwu of the Dark Moon Imperial family. You can call me Anwu." Dark Dance was beautiful and calm. She didn't fight or hide, and she was kind-hearted. In the Dark Moon royal family, she probably had the most friends. Therefore, when she served Yi Qinghan all these years, no one laughed at her. Instead, they only thought that she was kind-hearted. "Where did your grandfather go? Why haven't you returned for so many years?" Yi Qinghan frowned and asked. Grandpa Patriarch and Uncle Crown Prince went to find an exit. They want to take the Dark Moon clan out of this poor village and return to the ancient immortal world. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said in a self-deprecating tone, "The ancient immortal realm has already been torn apart and is no longer suitable for living." And Wu was shocked. The Dark Moon clan had been away from the ancient immortal world for too long. They didn't even know about the war between the Yen clan and the ancient immortals and gods. They also didn't know that the ancient immortal world had been torn apart. However, while Dark Dancer was still in shock, Yi Qinghan snapped out of his daze. Frowning, he asked, "What did you just say? They're looking for a way back? Could it be that the space-time transfer tablet on the voracious wolf star can transfer us over but you can't?" Dark Dancer looked at Yi Qinghan's shocked expression and couldn't bear to tell him the truth. However, she didn't want him to be kept in the dark either. After a moment of hesitation, she replied truthfully, "According to historical records, the transfer tablet can only be used once. It's said that it's a punishment for the Dark Moon clan by the ancient immortals and gods." Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. If they couldn't use the transfer tablet and relied on manpower alone, it would take countless years even if the primordial immortal emperor flew. It would take him billions of years to return. It was even uncertain if he could find the way back. By the time he returned, it would be too late. Who knew what would happen to the crazed manor? Roared Yi Qinghan's body let out a bestial roar. He stood on the square as though he was rooted to the ground. The veins on his arms bulged and the iron chains rattled. His hair was disheveled and he looked ferocious and vicious. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boomed that the entire square was trembling. Even the Dark Moon Palace was emitting a monstrous light. "Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon, I'll give you one last chance. Let me go." Yi Qinghan roared and his aura pushed Dark Dancer 100 meters away. However, he didn't hurt her. Whoosh-da-whoosh. More than 10 figures quickly appeared on the square. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon had also arrived. Looking at Yi Qinghan's crazed eyes, her heart turned cold and even her spine broke out in cold sweat. "Dark Dancer, what did you say to Yi Qinghan?" Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon asked in a deep voice. Dark Dancer said in fear, "I only told him." According to historical records, the transfer tablet on the voracious wolf star can only be used once. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon immediately understood that Yi Qinghan was in a hurry to return. "Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon, I'm warning you. If you don't let me go, after I break free today, your Dark Moon clan will become history." Yi Qinghan's eyes emitted an ominous glint. His right arm, the Flame Ancestor arm, nearly shattered the Dark Moon ring. The Dark Moon ring blossomed with light, but it couldn't withstand the power of the Flame Ancestor's right arm. Buzzed, the entire Dark Moon star was bursting with light. Energy continuously rushed into the 4 pillars. The pillars passed through the iron chains and into the Dark Moon ring. Endless energy supported the Dark Moon ring as it crazily resisted Yi Qinghan. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Crack crack crack. The Dark Moon iron chain was a legend. Anyone who was bound by it wouldn't be able to break free unless they took the initiative to release it. However, it was now in imminent danger. Yi Qinghan stretched the iron chain. He flipped his right hand and grabbed the iron chain, wanting to break it. Boom boom boom. The 4 pillars trembled, causing the experts of the Dark Moon clan to be alarmed. A second-degree realm expert pulled out his sword and stabbed towards Yi Qinghan. The sword light was like a rainbow, unstoppable. However, just as he got close to Yi Qinghan, a majestic energy blasted him away. The sharp sword couldn't even break his defense. "Hence, I didn't want to bother with you, but you have repeatedly challenged my bottom line." Yi Qinghan stared at Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon and the people of the Dark Moon clan. The murderous intent in his eyes grew thicker and thicker. Dark Dance didn't expect that her words would cause such a big disaster. She immediately rushed forward without caring about the danger and pleaded, "Esteemed Lord, don't be angry. Grandfather will be back soon. There's no need to wait for him to come back." Yi Qinghan roared towards the sky. His right arm held the iron chain. His strength was sky-high. His black hair was blown up by the energy and he turned into an ancient demon. The square under his feet was shattered by him even though there was a barrier protecting it. Wah! Heavenly Sovereign Darkman's murderous intent was obvious as he couldn't tolerate it any longer. Yi Qinghan was an uncontrollable factor and he could exterminate the Dark Moon clan anytime. He could only make the first move. The Dark Moon ring in his hand controlled the bracelets on Yi Qinghan's 4 limbs as it shrunk continuously. "Dark Dance, back off. I will kill him today, lest you cause more trouble." Hua! Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon soared into the sky and borrowed the Dark Moon star's energy to gather in his palms. Whoosh! A figure flew across the sky and directly captured Dark Dance, who was in front of Yi Qinghan. Following that, Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon hacked down viciously as energy flooded the square. Boom! Yi Qinghan waved his iron arm and smashed the iron chain towards Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon's attack. In an instant, the repercussions shattered the ground. Even the second and third degree realm experts were sent flying. If it wasn't for the fact that Dark Dance was brought away, the repercussions would have killed her. Heavenly Sovereign Elder, he's not a bad person. Dark Dance pushed away the arms of the expert who brought her away and shouted towards Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon. Unfortunately, she was one step too late. Even if she wasn't late, Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon wouldn't listen to her. Cracked. After a crisp sound, Yi Qinghan's right arm released the power of People's Path. Together with Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon's attack, it directly shattered the Dark Moon ring on his right wrist. His physical body blocked Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon's attack. Although blood flowed all over the ground, it didn't hurt his foundation. Dong dong dong. The surrounding Dark Moon clansmen frantically fled and screamed because Yi Qinghan broke free from the Dark Moon iron chain's restraint. His right arm broke free and he sent Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon flying with a punch. You're all courting death. Boom! Yi Qinghan's right arm broke free and his power was circulated. The majestic power of People's Path shattered everything and fiercely smashed towards the Dark Moon ring on his left wrist. In a blink of an eye, it shattered. The power circulated to his limbs and bones. This powerful Dark Moon ring had controlled Yi Qinghan for more than 10 years, but it was still shattered in the end. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon was stunned. She was completely unable to accept the current situation. When she saw Yi Qinghan breaking free from the last shackle on his leg, she knew it was over. She stood powerlessly on the ground and with a plop, she knelt on the ground. This matter has nothing to do with Dark Moon Clan. It was all done by me alone. If you want to kill me, it's up to you. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon was straightforward as she directly knelt on the ground and admitted her mistake, taking all the responsibility. Yi Qinghan sneered as he clenched his right arm and slowly walked towards Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon. Chapter 2694. Fourth Form people did not dare to fight against Yi Qinghan. It was not that Empyrean Dark Moon was weak, but Yi Qinghan was too cruel. Four Supremes joined forces and ended up killing 3 and injuring 1. Of course, Empyrean Dark Moon did not know that Yi Qinghan had killed a 4th form Wu Chengkong. Otherwise, he would have killed Yi Qinghan on the same day. There was no need to wait until now. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Thud thud thud. Yi Qinghan stepped towards Empyrean Dark Moon. The killing intent in his eyes grew stronger. He slowly raised his right arm and made up his mind to kill. You saved my life back then, but you also locked me up when I was at the end of my rope and left me to fend for myself. My life was saved by myself. I don't owe you anything. Empyrean Dark Moon, I warned you before, but you didn't listen. Don't blame me for your death. Yi Qinghan's voice was filled with killing intent, causing people to shudder. Empyrean Dark Moon did not resist because he knew that if he resisted, Yi Qinghan would destroy the Dark Moon clan. It did not matter if the clan leader returned or not. Therefore, he lowered his head and waited for death. Whoosh! At this moment, Dark Dance rushed over recklessly and stood in front of Empyrean Dark Moon. She knelt in front of Yi Qinghan and begged, "Esteemed Lord, I beg you, don't kill us. Dark Dance begs you to stop killing us. Spare us. We really didn't do it on purpose." Huff huff huff. Yi Qinghan's breathing was rapid and his eyes were red. The best 10 years to recover from his injuries had been wasted by Empyrean Dark Moon. How could he not be angry? Dark Dance, thank you for taking care of me for 10 years. I will spare your Dark Moon clan, but this person must die. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Dark Dance raised her head and looked at Yi Qinghan's ferocious gaze. Although she was terrified, she was also firm. She stretched out her hand to block Empyrean Dark Moon and said without hesitation, "Then please kill Dark Dance. My life in exchange for Elder's life." Just at that time, Empyrean Dark Moon felt gratified. However, she was unwilling to exchange a junior's life for her own. Thus she consoled, "Dark Dance, back down. This is my mistake." You did it for the sake of the Dark Moon clan. My 10 years of care was to atone for your sins. Moreover, your life is more important than mine. You can protect the clan, but I can't. There was no longer fear in Dark Dance's eyes. There was only persistence, determination, and a fearless spirit of sacrifice. Hiss! Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. His waving right hand slowly lowered. He looked at the obedient and sensible Dark Dance, but he couldn't bear to see her die. Yi Qinghan's killing intent dissipated. The surrounding Dark Moon clan members didn't dare to breathe loudly. They looked at Yi Qinghan in horror. Perhaps only Dark Dance dared to talk to Yi Qinghan now. Dark Dance was the only one who was truly wise. She used 10 years of kindness to move an existence that had no feelings for the enemy. If it wasn't for Dark Dance's 10 years of care in exchange for Yi Qinghan's gratitude, there wouldn't be anyone left alive in the Dark Moon clan today. Empyrean Dark Moon, this Marquis spared your life today, but that doesn't mean I won't kill you in the future. In the future, when you see me, you must avoid me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Scram. Yi Qinghan said coldly. Empyrean Dark Moon didn't dare to anger Yi Qinghan anymore. Dignity was good, but she didn't want to risk her life for dignity. Many thanks, Lord Yi. This old man knows his mistake. Empyrean Dark Moon slowly stood up, bowed, and retreated. She didn't even dare to make any excessive movements, afraid of angering Yi Qinghan again. Angering Yi Qinghan was definitely not a good thing. If it was light, she would die. If it was heavy, the entire Dark Moon clan would be exterminated. Dark Dance was still kneeling in front of Yi Qinghan. She seemed to be waiting for Yi Qinghan to deal with her. Yi Qinghan looked at Dark Dance's pure face and said with a hoarse voice, "As a princess, you can be so kind and willing to sacrifice yourself for justice. This Marquis admires you. Stand up." "Many thanks, Lord Yi." Dark Dance knew you weren't a bad person. Dark Dance was moved to tears. She stood up and bowed. Yi Qinghan raised his head to look at the blazing sun in the sky. Time and space shifted, and he couldn't tell the path back to the ancient immortal world at all. Dark Dance's exaggeration sounded like nonsense to him. What is a good person? What is a bad person? To my enemies, I'm not a good person. To my friends, I'm not a bad person. In the future, don't use your eyes to distinguish between good and bad people. Otherwise, it will bring you a fatal disaster. Yi Qinghan reminded coldly. Dark Dance immediately replied, Dark Dance only thinks that good deeds will have good results. Everyone has a good side. Yi Qinghan looked coldly at Dark Dance and scolded disdainfully, "Idiot. That's because you haven't seen what killing is. Once you see it, you'll realize that some people in this world are not good. Even if they are good, it's not against you." Hua! Yi Qinghan turned and left. Only his imposing back was left. Dark Dance didn't understand Yi Qinghan's words, but she still chased after him and asked, "Lord Yi, where are you going? Dark Dance might be able to show you the way." Yi Qinghan didn't turn back. He just said indifferently, "I'm afraid you're the only one in the Dark Moon clan who dares to show me the way. If you see me killing people, you won't dare to follow me. Go back. Only the Dark Moon Palace is suitable for a kind and pure person like you." Hua! Yi Qinghan ascended the sky step by step. He looked around as if he was looking for something. However, he couldn't find any clues in the boundless galaxy. He could come, but he couldn't go back. Dark Dance didn't expect Yi Qinghan's heart to be so dark. He couldn't tolerate a kind person. She could only follow him silently. In fact, she was afraid that Yi Qinghan would suddenly go crazy and hurt her clansmen, so she had to follow. "I'll also come out to train. It's not only suitable to stay at home. Lord Yi, can you not look down on me?" Dark Dance said sadly. "Who?" Yi Qinghan kept changing his position. The distance he covered in an instant was a distance Dark Dance could only cover after a while. She was so tired that she was panting. However, she didn't dare let Yi Qinghan wander around planet Dark Moon. Hoo, dong dong dong. Dark Dance's heart was beating wildly. She was so tired that she was panting. However, she still clung to Yi Qinghan's back and said enthusiastically, "Lord Yi, I grew up on planet Dark Moon. I'm very familiar with this place. You can tell me what you're looking for." I'll definitely know. Yi Qinghan thought about it for a while. He didn't know what he was looking for, but if Greedy Wolf Star had a teleportation tablet, it meant there had to be a connection between the two stars. It couldn't have been a one-way trip, but he couldn't tell her how to contact him. So, he didn't know how to communicate with Dark Dance. You don't understand. Yi Qinghan coldly walked around the various cities of planet Dark Moon. He wanted to find that connection. Dark Dance was helpless. Yi Qinghan was like a sword that killed people. He wasn't good with words. It seemed like he didn't want to communicate with her. All she could do was follow him silently. Yi Qinghan really didn't want to communicate with her. Since she wanted to follow him, he would let her follow. When she was too tired to walk, she would naturally choose to leave. He walked silently. Along the way, he had swallowed several high-grade pills. Some of the internal injuries in his body hadn't been cleaned up. The scars on his body kept squeezing out foreign matter. After searching for a few days, he had traveled through dozens of large cities. He had walked for millions of miles. Yi Qinghan still couldn't find that point. The filth on his body started to compete with each other. It started to produce a strange smell. He found a valley where a river ran from north to south. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan rushed to the valley. He waved his hand and took off his ragged clothes. He jumped into the pool and swallowed some pills and resources. He closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. His body emitted a faint immortal light. The scars on his body couldn't disappear. They were all caused by the supreme treasures. It was almost impossible to completely heal them. The scars on his body were shocking. There were hundreds of scars of different sizes. Even his handsome and resolute face had a few scars. However, it didn't affect his handsome appearance. Instead, it added to his domineering and wild nature. Whoosh! 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 Dark Dance chased after him. She was so tired that she collapsed in the valley. When she saw Yi Qinghan taking off his clothes and cultivating, her face turned red. She quickly turned around and stopped looking at Yi Qinghan's body. She didn't even know where to put her hands. You don't have to chase after me. I'm not a murderous demon. I won't casually attack the people of the Dark Moon clan. Go back. I'll leave once I find the way back. Yi Qinghan said coldly without even opening his eyes. However, Dark Dance knew that there was no way back. Otherwise, the ancestors of the Dark Moon clan would have found it. After searching for so many years, not only did they not find the way back, many of them died. Many of the ancestors were lost in the galaxy and hadn't returned yet. If Yi Qinghan couldn't find it, he would inevitably be angry. Therefore, she refused to leave even if she was too tired to speak. Chapter 2695. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes slightly and glanced at Dark Dance from the corner of his eyes. This silly woman was too stubborn and too kind. She was willing to follow a murderous demon for the sake of her people. However, fortune favors fools. To be able to obtain the friendship of such a cruel person like Yi Qinghan, how could she not be lucky? Seeing that she was unwilling to leave, Yi Qinghan naturally knew what she was thinking and doing. Therefore, he did not attack her heart and let her follow him silently. After soaking in the water for more than 10 days, Yi Qinghan cleaned up all the blood clots and internal injuries in his body. Only then did he open his eyes. He had never felt so comfortable before. His realm had completely stabilized at the 3rd stage, and his strength had increased tenfold. If he were to fight a 4th stage supreme expert again, perhaps he would not be in such a sorry state. It was very likely that he would be able to crush them. Yi Qinghan gently breathed a sigh of relief, awakening Dark Dance who was meditating. After such a long time, he thought that Dark Dance had already left. He did not expect that she had actually stayed on the rock for more than 10 days and did not disturb him at all. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly and shook his head. This kind of girl was indeed rare. Sensible, obedient, pure, and almost untainted by evil. She maintained kindness in her heart. Even Yi Qinghan felt as if he had seen a pure land. After Dark Dance was awakened, she immediately stood up and said, "Esteemed Lord, I will leave for a moment. If you have any instructions, feel free to call me." After saying that, Dark Dance blushed and ran to hide under a rock in the distance. She did not even dare to show her head. Yi Qinghan got up and changed his clothes. The surface of his body was round and smooth. Holy light flowed around him as if he was a sacred medicine. His entire temperament was incomparably noble. The domineering aura of the Taigu Emperor flashed across his brows. Every word and action of his was illustrious and dignified. After putting on his clothes, Yi Qinghan moved his body and kicked his long legs. The sound of space and time whistling and shattering could be heard incessantly. When Dark Dance heard the sound, she secretly stood up with her hands covering her eyes. Her fingers separated, revealing dark black thick eyebrows and big eyes. Her cute and pure nature was limited to this. Yi Qinghan said faintly, "Come out." Only then did Dark Dance release her hands. She stuck out her red tongue and stood up. Yi Qinghan sat on a round rock and looked down at Dark Dance. He had not looked at this stupid woman carefully for so many years, but today he was interested. Small cherry-like lips, thick eyebrows and big eyes. There was no difference between the people of the Dark Moon clan and humans. If there was a difference, it would be their eyes. Their entire eyes were dark black. Their skin was snow white. It was the kind of white that lacked sunlight. However, on Dark Wu's body, it gave off an even whiter feeling. Beauty, 8 points, kindness plus 2 points, 10 points. Yi Qinghan gave her a perfect score from the bottom of his heart. Under Yi Qinghan's sharp gaze, Dark Dancer's heart trembled. She didn't dare to raise her head. Her hands were clutching her clothes in front of her abdomen, constantly rubbing them. Her slender legs were trembling. "Since you're afraid of me, why are you following me?" Yi Qinghan asked sternly. "I'm afraid you'll get angry and kill my clansmen," Dark Dance said truthfully. Yi Qinghan sneered and snorted, "Unless I have no other choice, I won't kill the weak. You can leave without worry." Dark Dance pursed her lips and said again, "I'm afraid you'll bump into Grandpa Clan Leader and Uncle Crown Prince." Yi Qinghan raised a complicated smile. Looking at the little woman in front of him, he really didn't know how to evaluate her. "Even if I bump into them, as long as they don't provoke me, I won't kill them. That should be fine, right?" Yi Qinghan said helplessly. Dark Dance looked up at Yi Qinghan with a wronged expression. She trembled but still refused to leave. She said nervously, "I'm afraid they'll provoke you." Yi Qinghan touched his forehead. His head hurt. It seemed that it was impossible to persuade her to go back. "Forget it. This marquis owes you. Follow me, follow me." Yi Qinghan gave up and said weakly. When Dark Dance heard this, she immediately smiled like the sun. She was pure, innocent, optimistic, and kind. Yi Qinghan didn't know how many years it had been since he last saw this kind of smile. Even the kindest person couldn't be kind when they were constantly in a killing environment. Looking at Dark Dance's smile, Yi Qinghan's cold face was no longer serious. "Let's go into the city. I also want to rest and eat something." Yi Qinghan stood up and said calmly. Yi Qinghan didn't need to eat or rest. He just didn't want this kind girl to be too tired. Whoosh-da-whoosh. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took Dark Dance away. Time and space changed and the stars moved. His speed was so fast that it completely exceeded Dark Dance's imagination. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, an ancient city appeared before them. A moment later, Yi Qinghan landed outside the city and stepped into the ancient city with Dark Dance. Dark Dance's realm wasn't very high, but she knew a lot about the Dark Moon Star. She explained excitedly, "Esteemed Master, this is one of the oldest cities on the Dark Moon Star. There are many rare treasures and unknown things here. We can go in and take a look." Yi Qinghan nodded. He also wanted to know what kind of connection this Dark Moon Star had with the ancient immortal world and Greedy Wolf Star. Greedy Wolf Star was definitely a planet with life. However, whether it was the inner world of a supreme immortal emperor or an ancestor was unknown. Yi Qinghan hadn't found out how big the planet created by the immortal emperor was. He also hadn't seen the ancestral planet, so he knew very little about this vast universe. The two stepped into the ancient city. Following Dark Dance's explanation, Yi Qinghan knew that other than resources, the common currency of the Dark Moon Star was the Dark Moon Coin. It was a very rare thing and couldn't be counterfeited. Therefore, it was the best currency. Yi Qinghan didn't have such a thing. Moreover, the dark moon coin was useless to him. Therefore, he didn't even think about getting it. The two walked on the ancient streets. There were many unknown antiques and sculptures piled up on both sides of the street. The people of the Dark Moon Star didn't know what these things represented. Therefore, they weren't valuable. Yi Qinghan looked at these things. Some of them were like totems and some were sculptures from the immortal world. They were indeed worthless and had no research value. However, there were some things that even he didn't know what they were. These antiques were filled with ancient laws and had been passed down for tens of millions of years. These things had research value. It was very possible to find some rules from these laws and create one's own supreme divine ability and secret technique. Yi Qinghan touched these antique sculptures. Some were carved out of stone, and some were carved out of wood. They were attached to the laws. Countless years of wind and sun hadn't destroyed them. Actually, some of these things are quite valuable, especially the wooden sculptures. They contain many Taoist techniques. If you can comprehend some of them, you might even be able to reach the fourth form. Your combat prowess will increase countless times, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Dark Dance was shocked. She didn't expect the antiques piled up on both sides of the street to be so powerful. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan moved and appeared next to a gigantic dragon tiger beast mask. He stretched out his hand and put it on his face, as if this mask had been made just for him. Moreover, the mask emitted a faint chill. It was imbued with the power of laws, and its defensive capabilities were extremely exaggerated. Such a treasure is placed here. What a waste of heavenly gifts. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. His flame ancestor's eyes could see through everything. He could even see the Emperor's aura on the mask. It was clear that this mask was made by a primordial immortal emperor. If you want, I can buy it for you. Everything that can be placed here is for sale. It depends on how much the merchant is willing to sell. Dark Dance raised her head and looked at the shop in front. However, at this moment, a middle-aged man in embroidered robes walked over with a smile. If the two of you are interested in anything, you can tell me. The price is negotiable. The middle-aged man smiled. Yi Qinghan pointed at the mask on his face and said in a dignified manner, I want this. State your price. The middle-aged man was shocked. He hesitated for a moment before reminding, this thing is extremely ominous. Generations of owners have all died unnatural deaths. No worries. State your price. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Chapter 2696. Yi Qinghan was determined to get this mask because he already knew the value of this mask. Not only was it a defensive item, but it could also awaken the soul and put it in a perfect state. Cultivating with it would be twice the result with half the effort. The middle-aged man was very observant. Although he could not see Yi Qinghan's eyes, he could feel Yi Qinghan's determination to get this item. 100,000 dark moon coins, no bargaining, the middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan did not know much about dark moon coins, but he felt that it was not an exaggerated number. Besides, something refined by a primordial immortal emperor could not be measured by price. Therefore, just as he was about to nod and agree, Dark Dance looked at the middle-aged man with an exaggerated expression and asked in surprise, Boss, are you robbing me? 100,000 dark moon coins? Why don't you want a city? Dark Dance was a kind and pure person, but at this moment, she felt that the middle-aged man was too exaggerated. Her eyes were wide open, and she looked very dissatisfied and angry. Even so, she did not curse. Yi Qinghan looked at Dark Dance and asked indifferently, what is this dark moon coin? Is 100,000 dark moon coins a big unit? Is it big? Very big, is it? Dark Dance was speechless. This guy did not even know how much 100,000 dark moon coins was, and he was already nodding and agreeing. Was he not afraid of being scammed? However, at this moment, an arrogant woman appeared in front of the shop. She was pretty, but her chest was so flat that it was hard to tell the front from the back. There were also a few followers following her. Dark Dance pursed her lips and gestured to Yi Qinghan. She whispered, look at that little girl, and then look at mine. After saying that, Dark Dance puffed up her proud chest and said with certainty, is it big or not? Yi Qinghan glanced at Princess Taiping and then at the princess with the surging waves. He chuckled and said, "This comparison is very novel and very intuitive. However, I know that 100,000 Dark Moon coins is a big number, but I still don't know how big it is." "Watch me." Dark Dancer volunteered and pulled Yi Qinghan behind her. She said to the middle-aged man, "Would you sell it for a cheaper price?" Of course, seeing how sincere you are, this old man is more than happy to lower the price a little. The middle-aged man, George, had a smile on his face. He thought that Yi Qinghan and Dark Dance would lower the price and buy it. Dark Dancer extended 5 slender fingers and said, 500 Dark Moon coins. Cough cough. Yi Qinghan was almost shocked by this bargain. He choked on his saliva and coughed. Obviously, the boss was also shocked. How was this little girl bargaining? She was clearly chopping off his head. The middle-aged boss, George, pretended to be speechless and said, "Little girl, this bargain is a little too big. You want me to lose money?" "Boss, you're bullying my friend because she's a foreigner. However, I also know about the origin of this great inauspicious mask. Its previous owners were all the top 3 elites of Dark Moon Planet. However, every time the owner cultivated to the 4th state, they would mysteriously die a tragic death. Their bodies would turn into dried corpses, and not even a drop of chi and blood would be left behind. Therefore, the people of Dark Moon Planet thought that this mask was a blood-sucking mask. Hence, it was called the Great Inauspicious Mask. It has been here for a long time, right? No one bought it. If you put it here, its value would be like that beauty over there." Yi Qinghan did not expect this pure and kind girl to be so good at bargaining. Her analogy was also very strange and unprecedented. 500 Dark Moon coins and 100,000 Dark Moon coins. The difference was like heaven and earth. Most importantly, this boss, George, was actually hesitating. "I can't sell it. I will lose money. My purchase price is 1,000 Dark Moon coins," George said with a bitter smile. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly as he snorted and said, "The purchase price is 1,000. You are asking me for 100,000? A cold aura enveloped George, causing him to almost fall to the ground in fright. Dark Dancer was also given a fright. She casually grabbed a handful of Dark Moon coins, about a few hundred of them, and pulled Yi Qinghan along as she ran. "Don't be angry, don't be angry. You are the one who gave him a chance to raise the price." Dark Dancer was still very kind. Even if she was cheated by an unscrupulous merchant, she still did not wish for Yi Qinghan to kill George. Yi Qinghan slowly took off the mask and stared at the dragon tiger Fong. After observing it for a long time, he asked in a deep voice, "You said that the previous owners of this mask died very miserably. All of them were like dried corpses. Were they sucked dry by the mask?" Dark Dancer immediately nodded and said, "That is the legend. According to what I know, the previous 2 owners of the mask died the same way. They were both very miserable. Their bodies were twisted sinisterly, and there was not even a trace of blood left after death. I thought that you would understand it very well since you were willing to buy it for 100,000 Dark Moon coins. It seems like you don't understand it at all." Yi Qinghan really could not tell who made this mask in a short amount of time unless he returned to the undying immortal world and asked the rich natives. However, he was still somewhat guarded in his heart, so he did not wear it on his face and put it away. The 2 continued walking as their eyes wandered around the streets. Yi Qinghan had found 2 very good treasures for Dark Dancer. As long as she could understand them, she would definitely become a supreme expert in the future. Even if she was not at the undying immortal emperor level, she would be at least at the level of an immemorial divine general. Yi Qinghan specially instructed, "After you go back, calm down and study the carving technique and the Dao technique contained within. Although I do not know who made these 2 treasures, I can tell that their cultivation is definitely higher than mine." Dark Dancer acted as if she had found a treasure. She hid the 2 strange sculptures in her clothes as if she was afraid of losing them. These things were very high level. Even the divine ring could not store them. The human Dao Emperor Pagoda was not here either. The 2 had to carry the treasures on their backs. Especially Dark Dancer, whose breasts were already very big. If she hid more things, it would be unsightly. Along the way, people were staring at her, and she almost wanted to find a hole to hide in. Yi Qinghan strolled leisurely, searching for treasures and resting at the same time. He thought that he was about to reach the end when he caught sight of a black iron treasure that looked like an arm out of the corner of his eye. His heart almost stopped. Buzz! The right arm recovered on its own and shot out a terrifying power. The entire city fell into a dead silence. The oppressive aura made all the experts in the city not dare to breathe. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and reached out to grab the black iron treasure. His fingertips trembled and directly pierced into the black iron, tearing apart the black iron outside and revealing a naked arm. It was a left arm, including the left palm. The left arm was chopped off by someone. Yan Zu's left arm. Yi Qinghan released his aura and suppressed the entire city. Like an immemorial war emperor, his soul covered the entire city. How is this possible? How can Yan Zu's left arm be here? During the immemorial era, someone came here. I am not the first person to reach Dark Moon Planet. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. He was almost certain of his guess. Otherwise, there was no way to explain why Yan Zu's left arm was here. Yi Qinghan held his left arm that was in a deep slumber. Perhaps it was because too much time had passed, even the recovery of his right arm did not activate his left arm. He then turned to Dark Dancer and asked in a deep voice, Dark Dancer, according to historical records, am I the first alien to enter planet Dark Moon? Dark Dancer shook her head because she really did not know. Escaping so far with Yan Zu's left arm, it was very likely that he was from the Yan clan. Moreover, he was a direct descendant. Yi Qinghan did not think anymore and said directly, buy it. I will bring you back to Dark Moon Palace. I want to find some information and historical records. Chapter 2697. The owner of Ancestor Yan's left arm was frightened by Yi Qinghan's aura and did not dare to raise the price. He only offered 1,300 Dark Moon coins, which was all the assets Dark Dance had. A princess only had about 1,000 Dark Moon coins on her. It could be seen that Dark Moon coins were extremely scarce. Yi Qinghan took Ancestor Yan's left arm and returned to the Dark Moon Hall with Dark Dance. At this time, Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon was much more well-behaved. When she saw Yi Qinghan, she took the initiative to retreat. Dark Dance gestured for the others to retreat. She brought Yi Qinghan into the Dark Moon Clan's Ancient Classics Pavilion. The secret history of the Dark Moon Clan was here. Looking at the countless secret histories, it would probably take a lot of time to flip through the history that he wanted. Dark Dance, call Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon over. Gather the oldest people in the clan here. I have something to ask them, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Dark Dance hurriedly left the Ancient Classics Pavilion and informed Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon. Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon did not dare to anger this big shot. She quickly gathered the oldest elders in the clan and brought them to the Ancient Classics Pavilion. Yi Qinghan was flipping through the ancient records. He did not turn his head and only said faintly, Everyone, I want to know some historical information. I hope that the seniors can tell me the truth. Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon took a deep breath, bowed and said, Lord Yi, please ask. During the primordial era, did any foreign races descend on the Dark Moon planet? If so, where are they now? Yi Qinghan turned his head and asked in a serious voice. The few old elders had almost transformed into the Tao. Most of their cultivation was around the First Heaven realm. They did not have much combat strength now, but their wisdom and memories were still there. They had read all the ancient records. They looked at each other and discussed with voice transmissions. Then, the oldest royal clan elder said in a hoarse voice, Lord Yi, during the primordial era, there was indeed a large tribe that descended on the Dark Moon planet. There were about hundreds of thousands of people. Our ancestors thought that they were attacking the Dark Moon planet and were about to counterattack. However, tens of thousands of experts appeared. They were ancient gods and ancient immortals. They were working together to hunt down the tribe of hundreds of thousands of people. As you know, the Dark Moon clan and the ancient gods and ancient immortals have a grudge against each other. Therefore, we joined forces with the tribe to fight. Both sides. In the end, Both sides suffered heavy losses. More than half of the ancestors and ancient gods and ancient immortals were killed. Of the ancient classics, Yi Qinghan looked at the elder and pondered for a moment. He frowned and said, "Where are the people of that tribe now?" Back then, they fought on the Dark Moon planet for a few decades. In the end, after the ancient gods and ancient immortals were all killed, the people of that tribe chose to move. According to historical records, they seem to be moving toward the east. If historical records remember correctly, about 3 light years to the east, there is a big planet with life. The people of that tribe all live there. Our Dark Moon clan's ancestor experts went there and returned successfully, the old man continued to reply. Yi Qinghan was almost certain that the people of that tribe had moved after the Yen clan was defeated. If he could really find a Yen clan tribe here, as a Yen clan elder, he would definitely do his best to bring them back to the immortal realm and reclaim the Yen clan's territory. Do you have a specific address and route? Yi Qinghan asked in a deep voice. The elders all shook their heads. The oldest elder said with certainty, "The ancestors passed down some information. They said that the life star is in the east. With the speed of the 4th form, you can reach it in 30 years. If you really want to go, you can just go in the direction of the East Divine Planet." East Divine Planet? Yi Qinghan stepped out of the Ancient Classics Pavilion and looked at the night sky. He asked, "Which one is the East Divine Planet?" Heavenly Venerable Dark Moon wanted to get Yi Qinghan to leave the Dark Moon planet as soon as possible. She immediately pointed to a brighter planet in the east and said, "Master Yi, that shining brighter planet is the East Divine Planet." At this moment, Dark Dance reminded him, the East Divine Planet disappears once every 3 years. After it disappears again, the light will weaken. You might not be able to tell. Do you want me to lead the way? Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and looked at Dark Dance. Her cultivation was too weak. However, he really didn't dare to believe that it was someone else. These elders and Heavenly Venerable Dark Moon didn't remind him that the Dark Moon planet would disappear and weaken its light. If he left directly just now, he might get lost in the galaxy and lose his direction. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and swept Dark Dance away. The galaxy was torn apart and the two rushed into the depths of the galaxy. Dark Dance was wrapped in Yi Qinghan's energy. Even the astral winds couldn't blow a strand of her hair. Under Yi Qinghan's protection, the dangers in the galaxy wouldn't endanger her. Yi Qinghan flew faster and faster along the East Divine Planet. He flew through the air and brushed past the dead stars several times. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan turned into a meteor and created flames in the galaxy. The galaxy changed and the stars moved. Time flew by and 3 years passed in a flash. Yi Qinghan almost raised his speed to the highest level. He was much faster than an ordinary 4th form. Whoosh! Countless stars moved in trajectories in the galaxy like dots of light. Once they got close, the endless dead stars would produce a terrifying suction force. It was unimaginable that the Yen clan's tribe would migrate so far with the old and weak. Yi Qinghan rushed into the depths of the galaxy. He didn't even have time to fuse with the Yen ancestor's left arm. The East Divine Planet was getting bigger and bigger. However, just as the 3rd year passed, the majestic East Divine Planet disappeared in the blink of an eye. It disappeared into thin air. Yi Qinghan watched helplessly as East Divine Planet disappeared. Suddenly, the galaxy warped, space-time changed, and the direction changed. At this moment, even Dark Dance couldn't tell the direction. "Master Yi, we need to wait for the East Divine Planet to appear again," Dark Dance said quickly. Yi Qinghan frowned and asked, "How long will it take for it to appear again?" "About half a month. The time is uncertain. It could also take a month." Dark Dance was afraid that Yi Qinghan would go crazy again. When she spoke, she kept looking at Yi Qinghan from the corner of her eyes. Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction where the East Divine Planet disappeared. His eyes flashed and looked through the void. The void in front of him distorted. He finally understood that it wasn't the East Divine Planet that disappeared, but the space-time in front of him that was swallowed by the wormhole. People couldn't see through the wormhole and would think that the East Divine Planet had disappeared. Once they entered the wormhole, no one knew where they would be teleported to. Therefore, when the East Divine Planet disappeared, many people were lost here. In fact, they weren't really lost. They entered the wormhole and were teleported away. Interesting. A wormhole appeared in 3 years. Yi Qinghan looked in front of him curiously. The desire to explore rushed out from the depths of his heart. He really wanted to enter the wormhole and find out where it led to. The galaxy twisted and turned, forming a huge vortex that sank downward. However, ordinary people couldn't see it. Only Yi Qinghan's eyes were special and could see through all laws. Half a month later, the wormhole disappeared. The illusion of vision was gone, and the East Divine Planet was still in front of him. Yi Qinghan increased his speed. It took him about 20 years to cross the East Divine Planet. Finally, he saw a huge planet with life. There wasn't much spirit energy on it, and there were very few places where one could live. The other places were almost all dead. Whoosh! Boom! Yi Qinghan rushed towards the ancient planet with dark dance in tow. He tore through the clouds and appeared in a desert. It was incomparably hot with surging heat waves. This place was simply not suitable for human survival. Although Yi Qinghan was exhausted, he didn't want to waste any time. He rushed in the direction of the human traces he had found in the sky. After a few hours, he found a tribe. From afar, this tribe didn't seem to have much connection with the Yen clan. Even Yi Qinghan himself wondered if he had wasted more than 20 years. Chapter 2698. Yi Qinghan walked over from afar. He stared at the tribe's totem and the decorations around it. It was very different from the Yen tribes. Did I get the wrong place? The people in this tribe aren't from the Yen tribe? Yi Qinghan was secretly shocked. He couldn't accept it. Whoosh 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 that the two stepped on the fine stones. Waves of heat came from the surface. The living environment on this planet was very cruel. They stepped on a stone path. There was lush grass on the opposite side. 10 strangely dressed children were playing in the grass and bushes. When they saw Yi Qinghan and An Wu, they immediately screamed and ran away, attracting the attention of the people in the tribe. Dong dong dong. The war drums at the entrance of the tribe were beaten. It was deafening. Then, the war drums in the distance were beaten again and again. Whoosh. In a moment, at least 30 people at the mystic immortal realm and above rushed to the entrance to confront Yi Qinghan. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Then, the first big shot's aura recovered and appeared at the entrance of the tribe in the blink of an eye. The second, the third, it was just a small tribe. There were actually a few big shots. It was a little exaggerated. After about half an hour, there were more than 100 experts standing in front of Yi Qinghan. There were 11 big shots. 2 of them were in the 3rd state and 1 was in the 4th state. Their auras were ancient and solemn. Their deep eyes were filled with doubt and surprise. They obviously didn't expect outsiders to appear here. Boom. Yi Qinghan's aura recovered. The Yen tribe's aura surged. A supreme aura spread out and looked down on the entire village. They didn't seem to have the aura of the Yen tribe, but they seemed to have the aura of the Yen tribe. It was very strange. Yi Qinghan wasn't sure if they were from the Yen tribe. How did they hide their aura? Even he, the inheritor of the Yen tribe, couldn't be sure. He's from the Yen tribe. What a rich aura of the Yen tribe. The old man in the 4th state looked at Yi Qinghan in shock and blurted out. Suddenly, tears flowed down his face as if he had lost control of his emotions. I am the Yen Emperor's successor. I bear the heavy responsibility of reviving the Yen clan. You are all Yen clan members. Why are there no traces of Yen clan blood in their bodies? Yi Qinghan asked in a deep voice when he saw the surprised expressions on the elders' faces. Whoosh. All of a sudden, the entrance of the tribe was in a mess. There was a lot of discussion, surprise, excitement, and ecstasy. A descendant of the crown prince. The successor of the first emperor has come to find us. Several tens of people roared. The war drums were beaten, rumbling endlessly. They transmitted into the heavens and swept towards the depths of this star. It was as if they were notifying the other clansmen. At this time, Yi Qinghan was certain that the person in front of him was a member of the Flame tribe. It was just that he had used a special method to conceal his blood aura. Tap tap tap, Yi Qinghan brought Dark Dance and walked towards the crowd. He looked up and saw many people moving in the depths of the tribe. Some women even carried kitchen knives and rushed towards the entrance of the tribe with their children. It seemed like they were here to fight for their lives. The child was holding a wooden stick and a wooden spear. He was furious and had a ferocious look on his face. As soon as he rushed over, he looked at Yi Qinghan with hatred. Many people had just arrived at the entrance of the tribe and didn't know the situation. They didn't know that Yi Qinghan was the Yan Emperor's descendant. They thought that the enemy had chased them here. That was why their aura was completely different. It seems like their knowledge of history is not bad. They know that every inch of land, every inch of blood, and 1,000,000 disciples and 1,000,000 soldiers. Yi Qinghan looked at the tribe moving quickly. There were about 70 to 80,000 people. There were the old, the weak, the sick, the disabled, women and children. They were on the 4th step. The first step was full of old people. They were decaying old people. They were not afraid of death and thought that death was nothing to be regretted. That was why they were at the front. The second step was full of middle-aged people, and the third step was full of young people. This kind of formation seemed to be the result of many years of battle research. It was all for the sake of preserving a legacy for the Yan clan. Yi Qinghan looked at this formation and felt his heart ache. These people didn't have it easy. In order to survive, they must have suffered more than him. The emotions in their eyes were very depressed. Sorry, I'm late. Yi Qinghan bowed deeply. This bow was for these old people. For the sake of the Yan clan's legacy, they had blocked at the front countless times. What? The old man slowly stepped towards Yi Qinghan and reached out to support Yi Qinghan's arm. He stroked Yan Zhu's right arm. Even though he was in his 4th state, he still couldn't control his emotions. Tears flowed down his face uncontrollably. After countless battles, the bone-piercing wounds were still vivid in his mind. However, he had never cried. Today, because of the appearance of a Yan clan member, he shed tears. When he saw Yan Zhu's right arm, he couldn't stop crying. Woo woo woo, the old man cried out in grief. His body trembled and he wanted to kneel on the ground. However, Yi Qinghan supported him tightly, not allowing him to kneel. Elder, I don't have the qualifications to receive your kneel. It was you who allowed the Yan clan's legacy to be passed down, not me. This bow should be mine. Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the old man. Get up. You are the successor of the crown prince. You represent the crown prince of the Yan clan. How can this old man accept your kneel? The old man immediately helped Yi Qinghan up and said respectfully. Yi Qinghan had too many questions to ask them. He said in a low voice, Elder, dismiss everyone. Let's talk alone. I have something to ask. But the old man quickly nodded. Wah! The old man waved his hand and everyone left reluctantly. They looked back at Yi Qinghan every 3 steps. Dark Dance didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to do next. Yi Qinghan said indifferently, Dark Dance, go play with the children. I have something to discuss with the elder. Dark Dance didn't dare to disturb Yi Qinghan. She immediately turned and walked towards the children. Yi Qinghan and the old man walked side by side. They came to a remote valley and sat in a pavilion facing each other. This old man didn't expect that after so many years, someone from the Yan clan would return here. The old man said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath, looked at the old man's withered hand, and saw that there were still fresh wounds. He whispered, It's a long story. I was fighting a noble battle in the undying immortal realm, but my identity was discovered by a few primordial overgod heirs. They didn't inform anyone else, and instead chose to ambush me. In the end, I fought with them for dozens of years, fleeing as I fought. In the end, I killed my way to planet Voracious Wolf, where I accidentally found a teleportation steel that sent us to planet Dark Moon. After 2 battles, I successfully killed 3 primordial overgod heirs. Although their overgod sparks escaped, they won't be able to return to their peak state without at least 100,000 years. Killing 3 primordial overgod heirs in a joint ambush. The old man's pupils shrank. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan's combat power to be so exaggerated. 5 primordial overgod heirs appeared. 4 of them ambushed me. However, all 4 of them are considered dead. There are no exceptions. Yi Qinghan said with certainty. Good. That's great. The old man clapped his hands and shouted excitedly. Even though Yi Qinghan had killed 4 primordial overgod heirs, he still couldn't vent his anger. When Yi Qinghan saw the old man's excited expression, a bitter smile appeared on his face. Only he knew how difficult this battle had been. Elder, what happened to your injuries? Yi Qinghan quickly calmed down and asked in a low voice. The old man's breath stagnated and he said helplessly, "Back then, a group of primordial immortals and primordial overgods chased us here. We joined forces with the Dark Moon and killed a group of them. However, there was another group that didn't die. They chased us here and fought with us for countless years. Both sides suffered great losses. In these years, their advantage grew stronger and stronger while our numbers dwindled. In order to hide our identities, we had to find medicinal herbs to smear on our bodies." Chapter 2699. There was also a group of ancient immortals and ancient gods stationed on this life planet. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed with killing intent as he asked, "Where are they stationed? Is there only a few tens of thousands of people left in your tribe?" The elder's face dimmed as he whispered, "After so many years, the Yen clan has at most 1 million people. They were divided into 2 tribes to fight against the ancient gods and ancient immortals respectively. However, after so many years, they have been defeated. Our tribe has less than 100,000 people while the other tribe has about 100,000 people. The number of young people is decreasing and the battle situation is becoming more and more disadvantageous for us." "What about the ancient gods and ancient immortals?" Yi Qinghan asked. When the elder mentioned the 2 tribes, his eyes were filled with anger and sadness as he said hoarsely, "The 2 tribes have about 300,000 people left. They have too many elites with powerful bloodlines. Moreover, they have lived for a long time and each of them has a 4th form immemorial being still alive. Although they are already rotten and can't personally fight, they are guarding their bases. We don't dare to chase into their main camp. This means that even if they are defeated, they still have a way out. As for us, once we are defeated, we won't even have a way out. A 4th form immemorial being still alive. They were living fossils with monstrous strength and a thorough understanding of all kinds of divine abilities and secret techniques. They also grasped the weakness of the Yen clan. When they attacked, it would be like thunder. The reason why the Yen clan was able to hold on until now was definitely because countless ancestors used their flesh and blood to build a wall to protect their clansmen." Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. With his strength, he could indeed kill a 4th form immemorial being and it wouldn't be difficult. However, when facing a 4th form immemorial being, he was clearly a little weak. Especially this kind of 4th form immemorial being, once they were defeated, they would definitely use a method of mutual destruction. In the end, they would even perish together. "Elder, go and inform the other tribe to gather with us. 10 years later, I will deal with the 2 tribes of ancient gods and ancient immortals." Yi Qinghan touched Yen Zhu's left arm and secretly said, "It's time to refine it." However, Yi Qinghan's plan did not receive the support of the elders. The elder said in a deep voice, "Your Highness, our 2 tribes are guarding the resources of the 2 mountain ranges. Once we leave, the resources will be handed over to others. Without resources, we will be beaten and become extremely passive. If you are unable to defeat their strongest expert, the Flame Clan's final outcome will be extremely tragic." The old man had been beaten into a pulp. He was cautious and did not dare to take any risks. Yi Qinghan, on the other hand, was the aggressive type. He liked to attack forcefully and kill his opponent until they were afraid. That was the best defense. Yi Qinghan was silent for a moment. He tapped his finger on the stone table. It was understandable that the elder wanted to leave a path for the Flame Clan. Just as the 2 of them were silent, a whistling arrow suddenly appeared in the sky. It exploded in the sky like fireworks. The expression of the elder of the Yen clan changed greatly. "SOS. Another tribe has been attacked and they won't be able to hold on much longer. The elder hurriedly stood up and looked down at Yi Qinghan, but Yi Qinghan had already left. You stay here and guard the tribe. I'll go and support them. Boom! The voice boomed. Yi Qinghan's afterimage was still in the same place, but the voice had already come from 100 li away. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan seemed to be teleporting. His figure dodged and broke through the void. He directly tore through the land of death and rushed in the direction of the arrow. Below the whistling arrow was a huge tribe. It was ancient and majestic. A large number of elders stood outside the tribe. They were all members of the Flame Clan. They were filled with the will to die as they fought against the enemy. As for the middle-aged expert of the Flame Clan, he was watching the elders die. His eyes were filled with tears and the weapon in his hand was trembling. The young man of the Flame Clan held a powerful immortal crossbow and aimed at the ancient immortal expert who was attacking the tribe. The first part was a war of attrition. The elders were about to give it their all. The middle-aged man would kill them. When all the middle-aged men died, the young men and women would go to the front lines. The last wave was the children and women. The sound of killing shook the heavens. Blood flowed on the ground, dyeing the grass red. The old men fell one after another. The ancient immortals were extremely powerful. They actually had 3 fourth-form experts. As for the Yen tribe, there were only 2 left. The Yen tribe could only use the lives of the old men to replace the 3rd fourth-form expert of the ancient immortals. They hoped that the reinforcements from the other Yen tribe would arrive. This tribe was a big one. It was slightly bigger than the one Yi Qinghan saw before. The experts were all here, but it was still miserable. The middle-aged man of the Flame Clan finally found an opportunity. He killed his way into the enemy's camp from the flank and began to fight crazily. He fought with his life to intimidate the ancient immortals. Shio! 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 Sword light filled the sky. The power of the human Tao shot out. The Flame Clan's great divine abilities were ever-changing. They began the most miserable battle with the ancient immortals. The middle-aged man of the Flame Clan was the main force. If he died, the Flame Clan would be wiped out. The ancient immortals fought for the sake of killing, while the Flame Clan fought for the sake of inheritance. Their goals were different. Hence, the Flame Clan had no way to retreat. They could only fight to the death. Even if they died, they had to bring an ancient immortal expert with them. The eyes of the children in the tribe were red. When they saw their parents rushing to kill, their faces were malevolent. Their hatred overflowed into the heavens. Generation after generation after generation of struggle. Hence, the Flame Clan had never forgotten their hatred. Boom! The 3rd fourth-form ancient immortal realm expert was using an overwhelming advantage to continuously kill the Flame Clan's elders. Even if the elders self-destructed, they were unable to cause any destructive damage to him. His face was malevolent, and his inhumane smile caused people to tremble. Bang! Another Flame Clan elder suffered heavy injuries. He directly broke through the defenses of the Flame Clan tribe and fell into the tribe. His vision turned black and he fainted. Many children surrounded the elder, glaring angrily at the approaching 4th form expert. Even if they died, they wouldn't admit defeat. Today, this immortal monarch has entered the 4th form. It is the time for your Flame Clan to be wiped out. That middle-aged 4th form expert laughed coldly. He walked towards the Flame Clan tribe with a murderous expression. No wonder they were defeated so quickly this time. It turned out that the other side had another 4th form expert. What a pity! If I wipe you out today, we won't be able to play anymore. We won't be able to go back. How boring! That 4th form expert's eyes were filled with crazy pleasure. Even though the cultivation of the 3rd form young men and women were very weak, their willpower was indestructible. The immortal crossbow shot through the air, and the crossbow arrow pierced through the void. However, just as it approached the 4th form expert, the crossbow arrow was fixed in place. Then, it was forcefully changed direction. Bush, bush, bush. The crossbow arrow shot toward the young children at an even faster speed. This wave of arrows was enough to destroy the last hope of the Flame Clan. Bush, bush. The arrow rain pierced through the void, and in the blink of an eye, it arrived outside the Flame Clan tribe. The middle-aged man from the second form expert's eyes were about to split open. They were the mainstay, but the third form expert was the hope of the Flame Clan. However, the distance was too far. They didn't even have the chance to go back and help. Just as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, the speeding crossbow arrow suddenly froze in midair. It didn't move an inch. The space distorted, but the crossbow arrow couldn't move an inch forward. The fourth form expert immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. A wave of killing intent enveloped his heart, causing his hair to stand on end. Buzz. The crossbow arrow struggled madly. It wanted to break free and destroy the Flame Clan's hope. However, not only did it not retreat, the arrow changed direction. Bush, bush, bush. The crossbow arrow turned 90 degrees. It didn't attack the fourth form expert. Instead, it attacked the main battlefield. Pucci. The crossbow arrow seemed to have eyes. In the blink of an eye, it pierced through the heads of more than 300 ancient immortals. Its momentum was unstoppable. It directly destroyed the souls of more than 300 ancient immortals. Boo! Come out! The fourth form expert roared. The crossbow arrow that he controlled killed more than 300 of his clansmen. However, he didn't even see who defeated him. How could he not be angry? Chapter 2700. Whoosh! Outside the Yen tribe, space distorted and a young man appeared. His black hair danced in the wind and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He looked down at the other party. I'm here. You can die now. Yi Qinghan's speed was unbelievably fast. He had traversed space-time and appeared in this place within the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Fortunately, he had appeared in time. Otherwise, the last hope of this large tribe would have been wiped out. The Yen tribe members were excited. They didn't expect a helper. Although they didn't know each other, he would definitely help them to the end. You're courting death. The fourth form ancient immortal saw that it was actually a third stage and was instantly enraged. He punched with immortal spiritual energy, shattering space and time. He directly attacked Yi Qinghan. The tips of Yi Qinghan's feet crossed as he pulled his right arm back. His veins bulged, and his eyes shone with the light of the order of the myriad laws. Without even thinking, he punched back. Boom! Poo! Yi Qinghan's attack was too fast, and a bloody mist exploded in the sky. The fourth form was powerful enough, but he was defeated even faster. His right arm was destroyed by Yi Qinghan's fist, and his bones and flesh turned into a bloody mist. His body seemed to have been struck by lightning. Bang! The fourth form was thrown far away. His eyeballs almost fell out. Blood flowed out of his orifices. His body twitched and was filled with the destructive power of human Tao. I've said it before. You can die now that I'm here. Yi Qinghan walked casually. He seemed to be walking slowly, but he was as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he stepped on the fourth form's head. Bang! Crack! The fourth form, even though it was a middle-aged man who had just entered the fourth form, didn't even have a chance to resist Yi Qinghan. His skull was crushed. The immortal soul in his sea of consciousness was drowned by the power of human Tao. The fourth form's soul let out a shrill scream. The entire battlefield fell silent. The battle stopped, and everyone was stunned. They turned their heads to see Yi Qinghan crush a fourth form fighter. The two fourth form Yen clan elders stared at Yi Qinghan in shock. They discovered that the Yen clan aura on his body was even denser and more terrifying than theirs. The key point was that they had never seen Yi Qinghan before. Since when did the Yen clan have such a supreme? The eyes of the ancient immortal narrowed as he stared at Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan merely looked like he was 30 years old. He was so young, yet he already had the strength to kill fourth form immortals. Even the inheritances of emperors wouldn't be able to do so, right? Yi Qinghan's battle robes fluttered in the wind as he slowly stepped onto the battlefield. Looking at the two experts in the fourth state of the ancient immortal realm, he said indifferently, "Both of you, attack together. Don't say I didn't give you a chance." Boom! Yi Qinghan Yenzu's right arm recovered. His aura surged into the heavens. The Yen clan's supreme beings might attack the mountains and rivers, intimidating all of time. Both of you, go and kill the other ancient immortals. From today onwards, the Yen clan will no longer be passive. Yi Qinghan used his aura to intimidate the two fourth-form ancient immortals. He waved his hand to signal the two Yen clan elders. His voice was firm, giving off an incomparable confidence. Killed that the Yen clan was strong. They finally seized the opportunity to counterattack and began their counterattack. One of the fourth-form Yen clan elders left and killed his way into the army of ancient immortals. However, the other one didn't leave. He was afraid that Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to withstand the attacks of the two experts. 2 against 2. The eyes of the two fourth-form ancient immortal realm experts flashed with cold light. Their killing intent was dense. The strongest of the two said coldly, "I didn't expect the Yen clan to have such a supreme after so many years. However, since you have appeared, I dare to guarantee that you won't live for more than 3 years. My clan's ancestor will definitely personally take action and kill you into the nirvana state." Is that so? However, you won't have the chance to see it. Boom! Yi Qinghan's right fist broke through mountains and rivers. He directly found the strongest expert. In the blink of an eye, the power of human Tao flooded the mountains and rivers. 3,000 great divine arts were used. Thousands of techniques were used, causing the mountains and rivers to change color. He directly forced the expert to retreat. Bang bang bang. Yi Qinghan's strength suppressed the opponent. However, this person wasn't the one who had just entered the fourth form. He was a true fourth form expert. His cultivation didn't lose to an archaic master god's successor. Fist was the Taigu Emperor's weapon. There was nothing more crazy and powerful than Yi Qinghan. His iron fist smashed the opponent's powerful immortal weapon until it trembled. The eyes of the fourth form ancient immortal realm expert were filled with fear. Even his battle intent was smashed away by Yi Qinghan. Bang! Yi Qinghan circulated all the strength in his body through his right arm. This fist smashed the fourth form immortal weapon until it bent. It forcefully smashed into the opponent's chest, causing him to cough out blood and fly backward. You are the successor of the Yen clan's imperial family? Pooh! Cough cough cough. The fourth form ancient immortal realm expert's eyes were filled with fear. Yi Qinghan had practically all of the Yen clan's great abilities. They were ever-changing. With the support of the Yen ancestor's right arm, it wasn't something that an ordinary fourth form ancient immortal realm expert could resist. Smart. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance to see the ancient immortal realm's destruction. Bang! Boom boom boom. Yi Qinghan fiercely charged forward. Once he gained the upper hand, he used an even more powerful stance to suppress the opponent until he couldn't breathe. The opponent's defeat was already set in stone. It all depended on when Yi Qinghan would be able to kill him. At this moment, the Yen clan had an additional fourth form ancient immortal realm expert. He charged into the ancient immortal realm's army and forcefully slaughtered them. The Yen clan's army of tens of thousands collapsed and tore open a hole. The Yen clan's army turned defeat into victory. Woo woo woo. The horn of defeat sounded. The ancient immortal realm experts began to flee. However, the faster they fled, the faster they were defeated. The fourth form ancient immortal realm expert was like a harvester. Blood flowed like a river. In the blink of an eye, thousands of ancient immortal realm experts died. Whoosh da ding. Just as the battle was about to end, a second arrow rang out. The Yen clan's tribe that Yi Qinghan was in was also attacked. The other party had clearly discussed this beforehand. They fought on 2 fronts and didn't give them a chance to call for help. Boom dot crack. Yi Qinghan was extremely angry. He used almost all of his strength to punch out, directly breaking the opponent's hand. Then he kicked the opponent's head, almost sending him deep into the ground. In the blink of an eye, one of the 3 fourth form ancient immortal realm experts died and the other was heavily injured. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan saw that the other party had no chance and left the battlefield in the blink of an eye. He came quickly and left even faster. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Yi Qinghan was as fast as lightning. He didn't dare to waste any time. The other tribe had even fewer experts. Even a moment of delay could lead to the destruction of the tribe. Moreover, Dark Dancer was still in the tribe. The situation in Dark Dancer's tribe wasn't too serious. Before the ancient god clan attacked, they had been discovered by the Yen clan spies. They didn't fire the arrow to call for help, but to warn the other tribe that the other party was fighting on two fronts. The old elder took a deep breath and mobilized the Yen clan members to prepare to defend while migrating to the other tribe. Now that Yi Qinghan was here, he didn't want to fight to the death. There was still a chance. This was the time to conserve their strength. Dark Dancer led a group of children and began to retreat. However, the enemy attacked from all directions and didn't seem to give them a chance to retreat. In just a few moments, the other party had arrived. The ancient god clan had 2 fourth-form experts, but they were still far from the level of divine generals. They seemed to have the Yen clan in their grasp. This battle was destined to exterminate the Yen clan. Fighting on 2 fronts, they didn't need to be too nervous. Therefore, they didn't attack immediately. Instead, they watched as the ancient god experts surrounded the Yen clan members like hunters hunting their prey. They even laughed and commented from time to time. These 2 fourth-form ancient gods didn't know that the ancient immortals had already lost, and they had lost miserably. Of the 3 fourth-form ancient gods, 2 were already dead. The one that Yi Qinghan had heavily injured was killed by the other fourth-form Yen clan expert. They didn't even have a chance. On the other battlefield, the Yen clan had the upper hand. They believed that they would soon gain complete control of the situation. Moreover, Yi Qinghan was already on his way to help. If they didn't attack now, it would be equivalent to giving up the opportunity to attack. Chapter 2701. At the exit of the tribe, Dark Dance was escaping with a group of children. They were surrounded by experts of the ancient god clan. They seemed to be playing a game of eagle catching chicks. The men were killed and the women were captured. It was extremely cruel. The 2 experts in the 4th state stared at the elder of the Yen clan with a sinister smile. From today onwards, the Yen clan will be gone. It's boring just thinking about it. One of the middle-aged experts pretended to sigh regretfully. The other expert in the 4th state laughed sinisterly. There's still the Dark Moon clan. Step by step we'll have some fun. Yeah, luckily there's still the Dark Moon clan. Otherwise, we'll be too lonely if we can't go back. Maybe we can capture them and raise them in captivity. The women will be slaves and the men will be prey. That's more interesting. They didn't treat the Yen clan as humans but as ants. The ruthlessness in their words vividly displayed the hatred between the 2 clans. The elder of the Yen clan was extremely angry. Even in the face of the 2 experts, he didn't shrink back. He directly attacked and contributed his last bit of strength to the retreat of his clansmen. Boom! The elder of the Yen clan roared. His palm shook the space and distorted it. Divine light shone brightly. The profoundness of his divine ability was displayed vividly. Bang! The 2 experts teased and attacked the elder. In the blink of an eye, they were in a fight. In the distance, the periphery of the Yen clan's tribe was breached and fell into a desperate battle. In order to preserve their hope, the middle-aged man, elder, and woman attacked with all their might to protect the young children. However, the ancient god clan only wanted to destroy all the young children of the Yen clan and cut off the Yen clan's inheritance. Dark Dance crazily attacked the approaching experts. Fortunately, she was also a mystic immortal expert. Moreover, those who attacked the children were all mystic immortals. The gap between them wasn't big. She used the Dark Moon Ring. The power of the Dark Moon poured out and attacked the approaching experts indiscriminately. Xiu xiu xiu. Bang. Dozens of experts of the ancient god clan were temporarily stopped. Haha, so it's a girl from the Dark Moon clan. She's not bad. Once we catch her, we can have some fun. Whoever catches her can have her. We should also get some fresh slaves. The ancient god soldiers laughed crazily and looked at Dark Dance as if she was their prey. In a moment, Dark Dance was injured, but she refused to give up on these children. She would rather die than leave one behind. Dark Dancer kept pouncing on the children who were about to be killed. She flipped and rolled to avoid the enemy's attacks. The soldiers of the ancient god lineage seemed to want to catch Dark Dancer alive. Hence, after dozens of attacks, she was not hurt. However, there were a few wounds on her body that were dripping with blood. The ancient divine soldiers clamored and made strange noises. The divine spears in their hands pressed forward step by step. The Yen clan's tribe was set ablaze. The flames of war were everywhere. The most critical juncture had arrived. Whoosh! Just at this moment, Yi Qinghan directly returned the way he came. He was even faster than when he left. He used a great divine ability from a distance and tore apart the mountains and rivers with a single blade. Before he even arrived, the blade had already smashed into the Yen tribe's army of ancient gods. Boom! The 7-foot-long saber descended from the sky and stabbed into the ground. Shock waves swept out and sent hundreds of people flying. Bang bang bang! Hundreds of people were preparing to charge, but they were directly shaken by a wave of power that caused them to bleed from their 7 orifices. They coughed up blood, and some of them were even shaken to death because they were too close. One. Zhong Kuang stabbed into the ground, but it was not motionless. Instead, it was trembling rapidly, causing the void to distort and emit a terrifying might. Who is it? Enemy attack. Woo woo woo! At the bugle horn for reinforcements was blown. The heavens and earth were filled with a melody and the sound of drums shook the heavens. Whoosh! Boom! In less than 3 breaths of time after Zhong Kuang appeared, Yi Qinghan powerfully appeared. With a wave of his hand, Zhong Kuang appeared in his hand. He slashed out more than 20 times and actually destroyed dozens of experts in succession. This allowed the experts of the Yen tribe to free up their hands to save the children. Whoosh! Poochie! Actually, the moment Yi Qinghan appeared, an ancient god soldier rushed toward a child. At this moment, Dark Dancer jumped in front of the child. Her left shoulder was pierced by a divine spear. Blood spurted out onto the child's face. Dark Dancer screamed as her body flew backward, knocking the child behind her away. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan heard the familiar scream. His figure flashed as he caught the child and Dark Dancer. He waved his hand to stop the bleeding on Dark Dancer's body. A cold light flashed as he coldly looked at the approaching ancient god soldiers. Buzz! The will and order of the surroundings changed. The divine spears in the hands of the ancient god soldiers twisted and pointed at their masters. Ugh! What's going on? Poochie! The internal order of the divine spear changed, and the tip of the spear pierced through the void, aiming for their throats. In the blink of an eye, it pierced through their throats. The dozens of ancient god soldiers couldn't believe what they were seeing, and they couldn't imagine that they would die under their own divine spear. As soon as Yi Qinghan appeared, the scene became chaotic. Bang! Boom! Yi Qinghan punched forward. The shockwave sent the people fighting in the surroundings flying. He controlled the power of People Dao to the extreme, minimizing the damage to the Yen tribe. Most of the power landed on the ancient god soldiers. Yi Qinghan put down Dark Dancer and stabbed the long blade in front of her. He said in a deep voice, "Guard these children. Give me half an incense's time." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan's figure moved, leaving afterimages everywhere. He punched through the heads of the big shots. The first and second stage experts were indeed powerful, but they could not take a hit from Yen Zhu's right arm. Even the bones in their arms were broken. Then he punched their chests, shattering their hearts. Even their godheads were knocked out of their bodies. Bang bang bang. Yi Qinghan was as fast as lightning. He sped through the Yen tribe, destroying the surrounding buildings and causing countless casualties. The ancient god lineage was finally in chaos. They frantically retreated to avoid the demon in front of them. However, the more they retreated, the more ferocious Yi Qinghan's attacks became. He attacked indiscriminately and could even kill dozens of people in an instant. Boom! Whoosh! At this moment, one of the ancient god lineage's 4th form finally broke free from the Yen tribe's elder. He descended from the sky and attacked Yi Qinghan. Bang! Yi Qinghan clenched his iron fist and stomped on the ground. He rushed up to the 9 heavens and punched out, clashing head-on with the fourth form. Boom! In midair, the two of them clashed. Shockwaves swept across the Milky Way, and Yi Qinghan's body plummeted downwards. Meanwhile, the fourth state cultivator was sent into the depths of the Milky Way by Yi Qinghan, and the web between his thumb and forefinger cracked. Bang! The Yi Qinghan was knocked to the ground, but he didn't stop at all. His body flickered, and a ferocious glint appeared in his eyes as he charged into the enemy army once again. His arms were like machines that reaped the lives of gods. He threw out thousands of punches, and his speed was so fast that he left behind afterimages. It seemed that even the afterimages could kill. Adat, the ancient god lineage, was finally shocked. They frantically retreated. The army formation had been destroyed. This time, it was the Yen tribe's turn to retaliate. The Yen clan elders seized the opportunity and attacked with all his might, hoping to use his own life to deplete more of the ancient god's lives. At this moment, the fourth form ancient god that had been sent flying rushed back angrily. His sword pierced through space and time and appeared above Yi Qinghan's head. Boom! Hua! Yi Qinghan's right hand turned into a claw and grabbed the divine sword in his opponent's hand. The fourth form ancient god was so shocked that his eyeballs almost fell out. How is this possible? The expert in the fourth state was terrified. It was almost impossible for him to break free from Yi Qinghan's right hand. Just as he was hesitating whether or not he should let go of the divine sword in his hand, Yi Qinghan's foot shot straight up into the sky and landed on his head, almost knocking out his divinity. Chapter 2702. Bang! Pooh! Yi Qinghan's kick landed on the fourth form ancient god expert's head. He almost bit off his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. His divine sword flew out of his hand, and his body flew into the sky. But this time, Yi Qinghan didn't let him escape. Instead, he charged forward, his left hand grabbing at the flying fourth form. With a flip of his right hand, the hilt of the divine sword appeared in his hand. With a cold glint, a perfect arc pierced into the fourth form's neck. Pu Chi! The divine sword pierced through the fourth form ancient god expert's neck. Blood dripped from the tip of the sword. This was the first time a fourth form ancient god expert had been killed by his own divine weapon. Because Yi Qinghan had changed the order of the divine weapon, it was no longer under the control of its master. The divine sword was submerged by the power of humanity, which then submerged the fourth form ancient god expert's broken body. Bang! Boom! Yi Qinghan's right arm turned into an elbow strike and smashed into the fourth form ancient god expert's head. The fourth form ancient god expert did not even have time to display any advantage before he was killed. His godhead and soul did not escape either. In an instant, the area within a 10-kilometer radius of the Yen tribe fell into a deathly silence. Yi Qinghan was expressionless. He had just killed a fourth form ancient god expert, not a fourth form ancient god expert. Hua! Yi Qinghan turned around, his black hair fluttering. His fierce eyes stared at the fourth form ancient god expert. Tap tap tap, the corners of Yi Qinghan's eyes flickered, and his lips curled up into a cold smile. He slowly walked forward. The momentum of the world was shaken, and a domain of 10,000 kilometers was formed. His words and actions followed, and his every move could shake the grand Tao. Even the Tao of sovereigns was nothing more than this. Which primordial overgod did your ancestors serve? Yi Qinghan slowly appeared in front of the old man and asked coldly like a god looking down on an ant. Hiss hiss hiss. Although the old man was in his fourth form, he was not an ancient god general, nor was he a fourth form ancient god. There was no way he could contend against Yi Qinghan, much less against Yi Qinghan's aura. He sucked in a cold breath, his body trembling as he involuntarily retreated. You're from the Yen clan, the fourth form said in fear. Yi Qinghan's voice was solemn and dignified. His words were like pearls as he said quietly, yes. The successor of the Yen clan's first emperor, Yi Qinghan. Now, if you answer my question, I can let you leave alive. The fourth form could not hide the fear in his eyes. This was because Yi Qinghan was in control of his surroundings. His life and death were in the hands of Yi Qinghan. The ancestor assisted the primordial sovereign of the great Tao. The fourth form immediately said, Tao sovereign's people? Yi Qinghan's voice was strange. He twirled his finger, and the divine light transformed into a sharp blade. He said calmly, Since Tao sovereign, the successor of the primeval sovereign, is already dead, there's no need for you to continue living. Boon-Da Yi Qinghan's 5 fingertips were like sharp knives, with sharp edges on all 4 sides. They were used specifically to draw blood, and in the blink of an eye, they pierced through the opponent's chest. Puqi Yi Qinghan's right hand pierced through the man's chest and grabbed his heart. His left hand grabbed his head, suppressing his godhead within. He did not give him a chance to escape. Didn't you say you wouldn't kill me? The fourth form elder despaired. He glared at Yi Qinghan with unwillingness. His eyes were ferocious, as if he was furious that Yi Qinghan did not keep his word. Yi Qinghan calmly said, The enemy's words cannot be trusted. If you don't even understand this, how did you manage to survive until now and cultivate to the fourth form? Bang! Crack! Yi Qinghan exerted force with both hands and crushed the opponent's heart. His left hand pierced through the man's sea of consciousness and seized his godhead. The power of People Tao flooded the man's sea of consciousness and destroyed his soul. 2 fourth form elders died in the blink of an eye. Yi Qinghan was like a ferocious demon. His body was dyed red with god blood, scaring the ancient god army far away. They trembled and turned into beasts to flee. The elder of the Yen clan wanted to kill them all, but Yi Qinghan waved his hand and said, Don't chase a cornered enemy. The enemy still has 2 fourth form elders. Sooner or later, there will be a real battle to the death. Let them escape first. Your Highness. The elder of the Yen clan immediately bowed. Yi Qinghan looked around at the corpses and thousands of injured. He immediately said, Treat the injured first and bury the dead. Set out today to meet up with the large tribes and gather all the strength of the Yen clan. Don't let the enemy defeat us one by one. Yes. Many thanks, Your Highness. The people of the Yen clan were wild with joy. They thought that their clan was going to be exterminated. They didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so strong. He was also the inheritor of the number 1 emperor of the Yen clan. They were very excited. They felt that the Yen clan finally had hope and were no longer passive. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and stepped to Dark Dance's side. He waved his hand and brought her into the valley. Dark Dance's body was pierced. Although Yi Qinghan stopped the bleeding, the wound was still there. This kind of wound penetrated the body and caused great damage. Her face was pale and the fear in her eyes had yet to settle. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and a ray of light slid across Dark Dance's chest. A soft touch circled around his fingertips. Dark Dance moaned. Her voice was like the sound of nature. If it was someone else, they would have been paralyzed. Yi Qinghan's willpower was firm. He wasn't moved. He then separated his hands and used all his immortal spiritual energy to absorb the harmful order and laws in her body. He healed all the wounds on her body. Dark Dancer let out a satisfied cry. Coupled with the swaying of her body and the strange sound, even Yi Qinghan felt a little strange. Yi Qinghan reached out and hit the back of her head. He said coldly, Don't make that kind of sound. Dark Dance didn't understand what her moaning meant. She touched the back of her head and asked in confusion. Yi Qinghan looked at the innocent Dark Dance. His fingertips trembled and brushed past her forehead. He couldn't communicate with her. He could only say, Don't ask so many questions. Just don't make that kind of sound in the future. Oh, Dark Dancer silently replied with a pout. Yi Qinghan didn't say anything else. He looked up at the sky. The stars shifted and the divination appeared. His appearance would definitely alarm the 2 fourth form immemorial experts. They were definitely not weaker than the ancient heavenly emperor. Moreover, there were 2 of them. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't go against the heavens. He couldn't even deal with 1 ancient heavenly emperor, let alone 2. The sky turned red, as if it had been washed in blood. Danger is coming. The true calamity of death is coming, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Dark Dance's eyes were filled with little stars. They were filled with admiration. She said with confidence, "You're so strong. Who can hurt you?" Yi Qinghan laughed self-deprecatingly. He said calmly, "That's because you haven't seen an expert. There are many who can kill me. In the primordial age, people who could kill me were everywhere." Hua! Yi Qinghan turned and stepped towards the Yen tribe. His battle robe was still dripping blood. The wound on his right hand was bleeding nonstop. It wasn't that easy for him to snatch the divine sword. It was a method of mutual destruction. He had caught his opponent off guard and killed him with injuries. Hua! The power of humanity enveloped his right arm. The wound didn't heal. Instead, it flowed with thicker Yen tribe blood. Yi Qinghan took out the Yen ancestor's left arm and sat at the mouth of the valley. Blood dyed his left arm red. After so many years, the order inside the left arm was about to be destroyed. If he wanted to refine it, he had to repair the left arm first. The Yen ancestor's left arm was bathed in a river of blood. Streams of power of humanity flowed through the arm. Yi Qinghan didn't know how to repair the left arm, but he knew how to repair the right arm. Both arms were in the same order. The essence of the left arm began to recover. Chapter 2703. Yi Qinghan was bathed in the light of the human Tao, and the mysteries of heaven and earth were revealed. His supernatural powers were unleashed at this moment. Yanzu's left arm floated in the air, and 10 colors were attached to it. There were also tiny colored lightning bolts moving about. The left arm that was in a state of nirvana had devoured so much energy, and the order was slowly recovering. However, it was too slow, and it would take at least 10 years. In the headquarters of the ancient god clan, the defeated army retreated with lingering fear. When they looked in the direction of the Yen tribe, they were trembling all over. There was a huge temple in the headquarters, and it was similar to the immemorial Great Tao Temple. The stone statue in the temple was of the immemorial Great Tao Master God, and it was extremely majestic. This was the faith of the ancient god clan, and it was also the reason for their survival. Here, they could not return to the ancient immortal world, and could only rely on this faith to survive. Inside the shrine sat a decaying old man. His godly aura was restrained, just like an ordinary old man. However, his deep eyes were filled with majesty, and the aura of a superior pervaded the air. Even an expert in the fourth state would have a feeling of not being able to raise their head when they saw him. This kind of majesty was definitely not inferior to the ancient heavenly emperor and Jingfan Mountain Lord, and it might even surpass Jingfan Mountain Lord. He was the supreme ruler of the ancient god clan. Other than praying and cultivating every day, he did not leave the temple at all. However, he could no longer move, and even if he wanted to go out, he had to push the wheelchair himself. At this moment, his personality was strange, and he was too angry. If he was dissatisfied, he would kill. Many experts in the third state had been killed by him, and experts in the fourth state had to kneel when they saw him. It was a blasphemy to his majesty. Dao Long Divine General, this was the title that the old man gave himself. He was far from a divine general, but he was already the supreme ruler. What was so difficult about calling himself a divine general? No one dared to disobey. Hua! Dao Long Divine General seemed to feel that the headquarters outside was in chaos. With a thought, the surrounding laws changed and divine power surged. The wheelchair automatically changed direction and slowly slid out of the temple. Outside the temple, a large number of divine soldiers were lying in a mess. Blood flowed like a river, and the ancient god clan's war flags were scattered all over the place. Hua! Dao Long Divine General looked down at the gods, and killing intent flashed in his eyes. He asked majestically, "Where are Dao Lang and Dao Qi?" Bang! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. All of a sudden, the remaining 20,000 soldiers all knelt on the ground in fear. A middle-aged man with the highest military rank quickly knelt in front of Dao Long Xinjiang and said in fear, "Ancestor, the 2 elders are dead." A young supreme being suddenly appeared in the Yen clan, and he killed 2 elders with a single move. Dao Long Xinjiang's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He stared at the people in front of him and snorted, "You all deserve to die." After so many years, you actually didn't notice that the Yen clan had another utmost exalted. "What use do we have for you?" Bang bang bang. "Ancestor, please spare our lives. This person is a new face. We've never seen him before." Over 20,000 defeated warriors kowtowed and begged for mercy in fear, fearing that they might anger this man who was about to die. Tao Dragon Deity General looked up at the sky. His eyes pierced through everything as if he saw the impending catastrophe. The murderous intent in his eyes intensified. The ominous star broke through space and arrived. The path of life is gradually sealed, and the path of death is everywhere. Dao Long Xinjiang looked at the moving stars in the sky and sighed. For so many years, this old man has led this line to suppress the Yen clan. "I'm about to die, but this situation happened. Time waits for no man. If I were 1,000,000 years younger, killing the ominous star would be as easy as flicking a finger." Sighed a long sigh, expressing the sorrow of old age. No one dared to say anything. These old immortals were the most inhumane. They could kill their enemies, but they could also kill their own children. The immemorial ancient immortal line was located in another part of the East. The current situation was almost the same, but their casualties were even worse. Almost all of their immortal soldiers were dead. 2 of the 3 fourth form immortals died, and the last one was heavily injured by the 2 elders of the Yen clan. He almost died, but luckily managed to escape. The strongest ancient immortals already had half a foot in death. They crossed the immemorial ancient immortal and ignored time. It was definitely not easy for them to survive until now. Their understanding of immortal techniques and secret techniques had already reached the peak. Immortal General Jiang and the old man were the same. Although they hadn't reached that level, they still called themselves generals. However, it wasn't laughable because their cultivation was already invincible in this space. The 2 of them didn't want to die, so they didn't use their final source to destroy the Yen clan's inheritance. Maybe they wanted to toy with the Yen clan, but in the end, the Yen clan didn't expect reinforcements to arrive. They waited until Yi Qinghan, the Yen clan's inheritor, returned. Laughable, laughable. A grasshopper that was about to die actually jumped up. Immortal General Jiang looked up and sighed. His withered hands grabbed the wheelchair, and his 5 fingers sank deep into it. "Old ancestor, with that person's strength, only you can deal with him." The last 4th form immortal knelt and said in fear. The ancient immortal clan's main camp was deathly silent. Jiang Tian closed his eyes and pondered. If he attacked now, Yi Qinghan would die. Of course, he would die too. There was no hope. "Go, ask Immortal General Dao Long if we can work together and use half of our life source to kill this ominous star. Break the path of death and turn it into a path of life." Immortal General Jiang didn't want to die, but Immortal General Dao Long definitely didn't want to die either. If they wanted to live, they had to work together. Yes. Although the last 4th form expert was heavily injured, he still clenched his teeth and retreated to the ancient god's main camp. Whoosh 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 his figure soared into the air and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's forehead was dripping with sweat. The order of the Yen ancestor's left arm was recovering extremely slowly. However, the might of the arm was getting stronger and stronger. 3 months passed in a flash and the recovery was less than 1%. Moreover, the consumption of energy was extremely great. If the human Dao Emperor Pagoda was here, Yi Qinghan wouldn't need to worry about the consumption of human Dao energy at all. However, using his flesh and blood to repair the Yen ancestor's left arm was like an ant eating an elephant. Anwu looked at Yi Qinghan with her chin in her hand. She didn't need to hide her admiration at all. She had never seen someone of the younger generation who could be so strong. Even the Dark Moon clan's crown prince wasn't as exaggerated as Yi Qinghan. "When can I be so powerful?" Anwu raised her small mouth and fantasized, "When I'm so powerful, maybe I can really find a way back and take back the Dark Moon clan's territory." Just as Yi Qinghan was recovering his left arm, the Yen clan received a post. It was actually a post from Immortal General Dao Long and Immortal General Jiang inviting Yi Qinghan to Flying Dragon Mountain. It didn't say that it was a battle or a peace treaty. It was just a very plain post to discuss the Tao. The Yen clan elder frowned. He didn't understand why the ancient gods and ancient immortals were doing this. The elder stepped into the valley and watched from afar as Yi Qinghan repaired the Yen ancestor's left arm. He didn't dare to disturb him as he didn't know how to heal the two old monsters. He could only pace back and forth at the entrance of the valley. Anwu looked curiously at the Yen clan elder. She walked over and asked, "Grandpa, what are you doing?" "I'm wondering if I should inform His Highness that the ancient gods and ancient immortals have sent an invitation to His Highness to Flying Dragon Mountain," the Yen clan elder said hesitantly. Anwu shook her head and reminded, "Grandpa, Lord Yi said that as long as the two old monsters don't attack the clan, we shouldn't disturb his seclusion." The elder could only retreat. However, a few days later, a second invitation arrived. It was an ultimatum. In less than a month, Immortal General Dao Long and Immortal General Jiang Tian would personally step into the Yen clan tribe. The elder had no choice but to head to the valley again. He said respectfully, "His Highness, it seems that the two old monsters are determined to see you. What do you think?" Yi Qinghan slowly opened his eyes. However, he didn't stop repairing the Yen ancestor's left arm. He only replied coldly, "Reply to the two old men and tell them that I will appear in Flying Dragon Mountain in a month. If I don't update these 2 days, I'll start on August 1st. I'll update at least 2 chapters a day. Thanks." Chapter 2704. 2 posts with the same content were sent to the headquarters of the ancient gods and ancient immortals at the same time. The 2 supreme experts were so old that their eyeballs had sunk into their eye sockets. They looked at the content of the posts and pondered for a moment before the posts turned into ashes. "Then we'll wait for you for a month." Although the 2 fourth form immemorial god generals and immortal generals were not together, the meaning was exactly the same. Time flew by, the sun set, the moon rose, and the stars changed. On such a large planet, there were very few places that one could live in. They were either mountains, deserts, or forests. Only plains were rare, and there weren't many powerful creatures here either. There were only the Yen clan, ancient gods, and ancient immortals. These 3 races had been fighting here for many years and many people had died. Perhaps because of Yi Qinghan's arrival, the situation would change. No one knew what kind of effect Yi Qinghan's meeting with the 2 sovereigns would have 1 month later. However, the ancient gods, ancient immortals, and the flame ancestor were nervous, afraid, and somewhat expectant. The 2 tribes of Yen ancestor were united, and the ancient gods and ancient immortals were temporarily gathered together. All sides were in a calm period, confronting each other openly. Even if the people of the 3 races appeared alone, they did not dare to casually make a move because everyone was waiting for a month's time. Yi Qinghan was still racing against time to repair his left arm. Because he had to speed up, his resources were consumed very quickly. He had wasted about 30 to 40%. If there was enough time, he could save a lot of resources. As time passed, Yi Qinghan's resources were almost exhausted, but Yen ancestor's left arm had only been repaired by 40%. Dark Dance was quietly guarding at the side, staring at Yi Qinghan without blinking. Her eyes were filled with infatuation and love. Yi Qinghan did not have the mind to care about Dark Dance. The moment his resources were exhausted, there were still 3 days before the 1-month deadline. He tentatively began to refine his left arm. Although there was still a lot of internal order in his left arm that had not been repaired, his blood vessels were connected, so refining it was not difficult. However, the combat strength he could display was not even 1/1000th of the flame ancestor's right arm. However, with Yi Qinghan's strength, he was unable to unleash even 1/1000th of the strength of Yen Zhu's right arm. On the contrary, Yen Zhu's left arm was more compatible with his body. On the 3rd day, the flame ancestor's left arm was refined into Yi Qinghan's left arm. It was flawless. His body was blooming with the might and order of an ancient supreme being. When he opened his eyes, he could see through 10,000 laws. The order of this ancient star was clearly seen through. Natural life planets were far more orderly and strict than the worlds inside the bodies of experts. Hua! Yi Qinghan stood up. His battle robe was covered in dust. His handsome face revealed a trace of seriousness. This time, the refining of his left arm did not achieve the effect he wanted. Now, when facing a fourth form immemorial expert, it was completely possible for him to maintain the state of mutual injury. However, when facing two supreme immemorial experts, the danger was too great. Unfortunately, time waits for no man. Give me another 10 years, so what if I have two supreme beings? Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and muttered. He then looked at Dark Dance beside him. Seeing the light in her eyes, he could not help but sigh and shake his head. Dark Dance, follow me to the tribe. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Oh! Dark Dance obediently followed behind, not daring to disobey in the slightest. The two entered the entrance of the tribe one after the other. At this time, the two great tribes of Yen clan were waiting silently. Several elders of Yen clan were worried and nervous. His Highness is back. Greetings, His Highness. Seeing Yi Qinghan appear, everyone stepped forward and bowed. Yi Qinghan nodded faintly and said, Everyone, there is no need to be so formal. Tomorrow I will meet the two divine generals. Stay in the tribe and prevent them from ambushing us. Hearing this, everyone immediately rejected, Your Highness, meeting those two is no small matter. We are willing to accompany you. Even if we die in battle, we can help you delay an old man. The three elders emitted the will of death. Yi Qinghan was the Yen clan's only hope at this time. The elders could die, but Yi Qinghan could not. Yi Qinghan replied firmly, No need. Guard the last tribe of Yen clan well. If there is even the slightest mistake, the Yen clan will be annihilated. In the vast ancient immortal world, and countless other planes, there are only 3 Yen clan members left after so many years. Do you still want to cause trouble? But as long as His Highness does not die, the Yen clan's inheritance will not be destroyed. The 3 elders replied in unison. Nonsense. All of you, shut up. As elders, you have to think of the Yen clan's inheritance. Since I dare to meet the 2 of them, I have a chance to live. There is no need for you to worry. Yi Qinghan's vicious aura soared to the sky. His cold gaze swept across the 3 elders, causing them to be silent. Dark Dance was intimidated by Yi Qinghan's aura. She was extremely afraid of this fierce person. At this time, a Yen clan secret agent rushed up and bowed. Report. Your Highness, Divine General Dao Long and Divine General Jiang are being carried to Flying Dragon Mountain. They have already set off. Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, nodded, and said, Continue to observe. Don't let them divert our attention. Yes, Your Highness. The agent quickly retreated. Yi Qinghan looked at the countless expectant, nervous, and respectful gazes in the tribe. How could he allow his people to be annihilated again? Do not worry. As long as I am alive, those 2 will not attack here. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice, 3 elders, I order you as the Yen clan's inheritor. If any of you dares to leave the tribe without permission, you will be expelled from the Yen clan and will not be buried. The 3 elders' pupils shrank and they immediately bowed. Understood. Whoosh. Yi Qinghan turned to leave. Dark Dance trembled. Master Yi, I will go with you. Yi Qinghan raised an eyebrow and asked, You are going to give your head to them? If the battle starts, you won't even be able to stop a single intent. Just wait here. Whoosh. Whoosh. Yi Qinghan disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only Dark Dance and the nervous Yen clan members. Why are you so fierce? Why are there so many people afraid of you? Dark Dance pouted. She could only retreat into the tribe and wait for Yi Qinghan to return. The Flying Dragon Mountain was vast and boundless. It looked like a dragon soaring into the sky. The environment was beautiful, the vast expanse of vegetation was lush, and a clear river ran through the sky, reaching the edge of the earth. There were no powerful creatures here, nor were there enough spirit herbs. It was not easy for 1 or 2 fourth form cultivators to be born here. Divine General Dao Long and Divine General Jiang Tian sat on chairs, carried by dozens of experts. The scene was extremely majestic and grand, comparable to that of an emperor. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Everyone rushed, and in the blink of an eye, they had traveled a few hundred miles. Yi Qinghan slowly walked on another path. His divine sense covered the distance, and under the guidance of a spy, he gradually approached the Flying Dragon Mountain. The peak of the Flying Dragon Mountain was not high. Looking from afar, it looked like a dragon was about to fly into the sky. On the second day, Yi Qinghan arrived at the Flying Dragon Mountain ahead of time. He stood on the peak and looked down at the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers with his hands behind his back. Just this aura alone was enough to show that he was an immemorial king. The stars flickered and the endless river of stars had no rules. Yi Qinghan was fascinated by this scene. He seemed to be able to see the laws and order of the river of stars. The ancestors have arrived. A long roar pierced through the heaven and earth. After about an incense stick's worth of time, dozens of experts carried 2 ancient gods and ancient immortals to the foot of the Flying Dragon Mountain. Yi Qinghan didn't even look back, but he could feel 2 terrifying auras awakening behind him. Those 2 pairs of eyes were staring at him. Chapter 2705. Whoosh! Boom! Turning around, the blade fell and stabbed into the mountain peak. The 6 eyes looked at each other, and the order of all laws was distorted. The great Tao retreated. Hoo hoo hoo, dong dong dong. The 30 or so ancient gods and ancient immortals did not dare to look up. At this moment, there were only 3 people in the world. The eyes of the 3 experts were like torches. It was extremely terrifying. Yi Qinghan held the hilt of his blade with his right hand and looked at the 2 decaying people sitting in wheelchairs. It would be difficult for them to even stand up. They were truly heroes past their prime. It was sad and lamentable. The dignified supreme experts were living in pain now. Divine General, you're old. Can you still eat? Yi Qinghan looked down at the 2. Although he knew that they were heroes past their prime, he also knew that once they exploded, no one could stop them. Tao Dragon Divine General stared at Yi Qinghan and said indifferently, although I'm old, I can still command the army and kill the enemy from 1,000 miles away. There's no need for your highness to worry. Immortal General Jiang snorted and did not say anything. Ha! Yi Qinghan laughed, and his voice shook the 9 heavens. The blade under his palm could shatter mountains. The 2 immortal generals realized that Yi Qinghan's strength had reached the peak. Although he was not in his 4th form, there were very few 4th form experts who could compete with him. Your Highness is indeed a dragon among men. You have the heroic bearing of the first emperor. This old man is impressed. Jiang Tian's voice was hoarse and emotionless. It sounded like a compliment, but Yi Qinghan did not think it was a compliment at all. Yi Qinghan looked coldly at Jiang Tian and the Tao Dragon Divine General and replied proudly, if I didn't have such courage, how could I have consecutively destroyed the primordial Great Tao Master God's legacies, the 5 elements Great Tao Master God's legacies, the Lightning Master God's legacies, and the Martial Tao Master God's legacies? What? The 2 old men's pupils shrank. Yi Qinghan mentioned the inheritors of 4 divine generals. Did that mean that the 6 inheritors of the primordial Great Tao were all dead? Without waiting for them to ask, Yi Qinghan said domineeringly, the successor of the primordial Great Path, Lord Tao, whom you are loyal to, has been destroyed. Who else are you waiting to be loyal to now? The 2 primeval paragons took a deep breath and exchanged a glance. Complex emotions flashed in their eyes. It seemed like they hadn't come here to fight, but for some other purpose. How should I address you, Your Highness? Dao Long Shenjiang suppressed his anger and asked in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan, I wonder if the 2 of you have come to find me today to fight, or do you have other motives? If you have something to say, just say it, Yi Qinghan said calmly. If the other party did not make a move, Yi Qinghan would definitely not take the initiative to make a move. If he really wanted to fight to the death, that would be 10 years later, or even 100 years later. These 2 old men had already exhausted their potential, while he was at the peak of his power. Sooner or later he would surpass them. Your Highness, are you from the ancient immortal world? Dao Long Xinjiang had other motives and did not want to anger Yi Qinghan, so he asked calmly. Yi Qinghan shook his head and replied, "The ancient immortal world has been destroyed. Everyone is gathered in the subsidiary planes of the ancient immortal world. The primordial immortal emperors and primordial great gods have all fallen. Even if there are survivors, they are at least heavily injured and have yet to appear in the world. Whether it is the ancient immortal world or the subsidiary immortal world, they are both large worlds. Your Highness, you must have some life-prolonging medicine. Would you be willing to sell it?" Dao Long Xinjiang asked in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan looked at Dao Long Xinjiang with a mocking gaze. Not to mention that he did not have any. Even if he did, he would not be stupid enough to help this old man extend his life. He would only dare to do so if he had nothing better to do. Looks like Dao Long Xinjiang is nearing the end of his lifespan. Otherwise, you wouldn't say such words, Yi Qinghan mocked. God knows how many years had passed since the ancient immortal world. There was no way to check. Perhaps these two old monsters had already forgotten the passage of time. Dao Long Xinjiang and Jiang Tian Xinjiang were truly forced into a corner. Without a powerful life-prolonging medicine, they would die in at most a few tens of thousands of years. Sigh. I'm old and tired of fighting. In the end, both sides suffered great losses. This old man is starting to doubt the reason and motive of the war back then. Dao Long Xinjiang sighed and looked up to the sky. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed. He pretended to be a celestial being and said in a low voice, "Yeah, if we continue fighting like this, the Yen clan will be annihilated and we will be injured. In the end, both sides will be injured. The universe is so big, why can't we live together?" Yi Qinghan looked at the two's pitiful expressions and felt disdain. If these two cared about human lives, they would have died long ago. The only reason they were willing to compromise was because they wanted to obtain something from him that could prolong their lives. I don't have anything to extend my life, but if I can return to the immortal world, what kind of resources can't I find? Yi Qinghan said flatly. Jiang Tian Xinjiang smiled wryly. It's easy to come here, but hard to go back. After so many years, the two of us have worked together to explore this galaxy and almost got lost in it several times. There's no way back. A path is created through exploration. Since I can come here, I can definitely go back. If the teleportation stele was built back then, it means there's a path. As long as we can find the coordinates of the stele, it'll only take a dozen years to go back. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. These two wanted to use him, so why couldn't he use them? Since he ran out of resources, maybe he could scam some from the ancient gods and ancient immortals. As expected, the two were tempted by Yi Qinghan's words. No one wanted to go back more than them. Your Highness, do you have a way to go back? Dao Long Xinjiang asked excitedly. Yi Qinghan nodded with feigned calmness, replying confidently, I already have a preliminary plan, but I'm still short on resources. You don't need to worry about that. If you don't want the war to continue, restrain your people. Otherwise, you won't be able to protect your clansmen, or even your own lives. Boom. Yi Qinghan slowly withdrew his right arm, releasing the mysteries of human Tao and the wailing of laws. His aura shook the heavens. Yi Qinghan took control of the flame ancestor's arms and eyes. The two supremes sucked in a breath of cold air. It seemed that the plan they had discussed before was completely useless. Yi Qinghan could take the two of them down with just his arms and eyes, and he wouldn't be defeated. Wait, Your Highness, you can tell me if you're short on resources. If you have a way, we can provide the resources. We can work together and leave this damned place, Dao Long Xinjiang immediately said. Yi Qinghan looked at the two calmly and said slowly, I don't really trust you. If you want to work together, at least show me your sincerity. Sincerity? Sure. When we go back, I'll have someone send the resources to you. But when you build the teleportation stele, I hope the two of us can be part of it, Jiang Tianxian said immediately. Yi Qinghan nodded and didn't deny it. The three of them each had their own ideas. In fact, none of them had good intentions. It was just a matter of who was stronger and who could scam the other. Yi Qinghan looked at the two and said flatly, if there are no other questions, you can go back and prepare yourselves. I'll take my leave first. Daolong Shunjiang and Daolong Shunjiang didn't stop Yi Qinghan, but they didn't. The two of them didn't leave. Instead, they looked at Yi Qinghan's back and exchanged glances. If we work together, we can kill him. Daolong Shunjiang said with certainty. There's no hurry. Even if we want to kill him, we'll have to wait until he's done with the teleportation steel. I've had enough of this damned place. I don't want to stay here for another day. Although he's talented and has a bright future, we have to take the risk in order to return alive. Jiang Tianxian said. Daolong Shunjiang also nodded. He was impatient to return. It was because they had their own needs that the three forces who had a blood feud with each other were once again on the same front. In the distance, Yi Qinghan's back was drenched in cold sweat. Although they didn't fight this time, it was more dangerous than a life-and-death battle. Daolong Shunjiang and Daolong Shunjiang were true ancient supremes. They weren't people that he could kill with his third-degree realm cultivation. Chapter 2706. The Yen tribe anxiously awaited Yi Qinghan's return. The spies sent back news one after another, causing a tense atmosphere to fill the tribe. However, before the spies could send back any news, Yi Qinghan had already quietly returned to the tribe. Even Yi Qinghan himself was surprised that he didn't fight when he saw the ancient god paragons. Instead, he chatted peacefully. Hua! The three elders of the Yen tribe immediately came out to welcome him. Your Highness, why did those two old fellows look for you? We were really worried that you would fight them to the death. Yen Chong, the first elder of the Yen tribe that Yi Qinghan met, let out a sigh of relief and said happily. Fight? They don't dare to fight. Those two old fellows are already buried up to their necks. If they fight with me, they will definitely die. However, I will also die, so they don't dare to fight. I will just drag it out. Yi Qinghan said calmly. Yen Chong immediately asked, Your Highness, what should we do next? Wait for them to send the east wind. I will refine the Yen ancestors' left arm. Fate cannot be gambled. It must be grasped in the palm of one's hand. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Your Highness, will they definitely send the east wind? The two elders of the other tribe asked curiously. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and replied, Obviously, we can't completely rely on them. We will wait for 3 days. If they don't send the east wind, I will personally go and look for it. What was the east wind? It was resources. Not only cultivation resources, but also the materials used to build the teleportation steel. The steel had to be the strongest material in the world. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure of the space-time laws and order. Once the teleportation steel was broken and the person was still in the teleportation space, it would be over. The person would be thrown out of the teleportation channel halfway and would wander in the endless universe, unable to return to the human world for eternity. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, a group of experts arrived outside the Yen clan's tribe. Behind them were 2 great armies. 2 supreme being experts came as well. The Yen clan's people didn't dare to act recklessly due to their oppressive auras. They were incomparably nervous. The crossbows in their hands were ready to shatter the void at any moment. Yi Qinghan stood on the wooden wall of the tribe, looking at Dao Long and Jiang Tian, the 2 primordial supremes, who looked like they were about to kill someone. Although he was nervous, he didn't show it on his face. He pretended to be calm and leaped forward, arriving in front of Dao Long and the others. I'm afraid the 2 of you will scare the children with your expressions. Yi Qinghan said coldly. In other words, they could only scare children, not him. Haha, how could the 2 ancient supremes not understand Yi Qinghan's intention? Immediately, they laughed loudly to conceal their killing intent. Whoosh! A cold light flashed, heading straight for Yi Qinghan's face. It was a divine ring. It was of a very high grade. The divine ring was filled with killing intent. If Yi Qinghan couldn't dodge it, he would definitely be captured alive today and the Yen clan would disappear from history. Buzz! Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He used his will to control the space in front of him, forming a domain. The divine ring stopped right in front of his face. It couldn't advance an inch, let alone kill him. Hua! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took off the divine ring on his forehead. He said indifferently, "Thank you for the divine ring, General Dao Long. I won't decline it." Dao Long's eyes were deep. He didn't expect that this attack could kill a third realm expert. In front of Yi Qinghan, it couldn't even break through his will. Jiang Tian knew that there was no need to probe further. Otherwise, if he angered Yi Qinghan, both sides would suffer great losses today. Whoosh! Jiang Tian also gave out a high-grade immortal ring. There were many resources inside. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and recognized the ring. He looked at the resources inside and snorted. "Are the two of you here to play with me? You can give these resources to the children of my clan. What's the point of giving them to me? Do the two primordial supremes think that I can build a large transfer boundary steel with these low-grade resources?" The resources inside weren't little, nor were they bad. However, to Yi Qinghan, they were dispensable. Whoosh! Hua! Yi Qinghan undid the contract. He waved his hand and threw the high-grade divine ring and immortal ring to Dark Dance, who was standing at the entrance of the tribe. At this moment, the two sides were facing each other. The sacred weapons in their hands were trembling. They aimed their bows and arrows at their respective targets. Killing intent filled the air. Yi Qinghan and the two supremes' auras were at their peak. Whoosh! Hiss hiss hiss! In this tense moment, someone loosened their grip on the bow. A sharp arrow pierced through the void and shot out from Yi Qinghan's side. Hua! Yi Qinghan caught the arrow with a flick of his finger. However, the ancient gods and ancient immortals on the other side also erupted. The divine crossbows in their hands pierced through the void. The arrows reached Yi Qinghan in the blink of an eye. Thousands of arrows pierced through the order of mountains and rivers. However, when they reached Yi Qinghan, they were blocked by an invisible wall. They couldn't penetrate his defensive chi at all. Bang bang bang! Yi Qinghan sneered. The divine crossbow arrows all shattered as he spoke. The baleful aura in the air dissipated. This action caused everyone to gasp. "The two of you, please don't joke around. The three clans aren't familiar enough to joke around. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you at any time. If you don't want to fight, tell your people to behave themselves. They won't be so lucky next time," Yi Qinghan said coldly. Cold sweat dripped down the ancient gods' foreheads. They didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so strong. The powerful divine crossbows and immortal crossbows couldn't even penetrate Yi Qinghan's defensive chi. He didn't even use the power of People Dao. Thousands of arrows were shattered. This kind of strength was probably something no one could do except for the two supremes. Divine General Dao Long's eyes flashed. He waved his hand and said, "Children, put away the divine crossbows. This time, we're here to talk about cooperation with His Highness Yi, not to kill." Hua! Jiang Tian signaled the clansmen behind him to put down all the immortal crossbows in their hands. The soaring murderous aura dissipated even faster. Yi Qinghan restrained his aura and looked at Dao Long and Jiang Tian silently. He said in a low voice, "If the two of you want to return to the ancient immortal world alive, it's best that you don't play with me. At most, you and I will die together. However, your two clans don't have any experts left. We still have 3 elders. The final winner will still be my Yen clan. What kind of resources do you want? This remote place doesn't even have a decent life-prolonging elixir. What kind of resources can we find?" Divine General Dao Long reminded in a low voice. Yi Qinghan thought for a moment and replied, "If we want to rebuild the transmission boundary monument, we need a suitable one first. Otherwise, it's just empty talk. As for resources, it's best if it's a space-type elixir. I have the profound meaning of the inverse space galaxy diagram. With the combination of space and the diagram, I believe that I have the ability to find the way back. Let's divide the work. You guys find a suitable boundary monument and I'll find a space-type elixir. If it's not possible, you guys can find a space-type elixir and I'll look for a boundary monument. You choose." None of them were easy to find. They needed to go to the depths of the Milky Way to search. The depths of the Milky Way were extremely dangerous. Once they encountered a giant space beast, the two supremes could forget about coming back alive. Dao Long and Jiang Tian looked at each other, not knowing what to look for. Chapter 2707. The two primordial supremes didn't know what they were looking for because it wasn't easy to find anything. Yi Qinghan wasn't familiar with this place either, so they were stuck in a stalemate. The three races hated each other so much that the chances of them standing together wasn't high. They could fall apart at any time because they couldn't see any hope. Yi Qinghan looked at the Star River. After a long time, he said calmly, "Why don't the three of us enter the Star River together to find a glimmer of hope?" How could the two primordial supremes be willing to waste their life source? After so many years, they weren't even willing to deal with the Yen clan, let alone go to the Star River to find space-type divine medicine and suitable materials for the boundary steel. This old man will send a clansman to go with you. How about it? Divine General Dao Long suggested. Yi Qinghan looked at the two with disdain and sneered, "Do you think they're worthy of something like that?" Hiss. The experts from the Ancient God clan and Ancient Immortal clans sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were full of dissatisfaction, but they didn't dare to refute. "This old man will go with you." The fourth form expert from the Ancient Immortal clan stood up and said firmly. Yi Qinghan looked at the fourth form expert with cold eyes and said hoarsely, "With your strength, do I even need to wave my hand to kill you? In my eyes, there's no difference between you and them. If you want to find the resources I need, you can only be an expert. For people at your level, just wait at home and don't appear in front of me. Otherwise, if I get angry one day, I'll slap you to death in the Star River." The fourth form expert trembled with anger. He glared at Yi Qinghan and snorted, "Your Highness Yi, don't go too far. This old man is a fourth form expert. If you don't rely on the Yen ancestors' arms, how can you suppress me? A weapon is also a part of one's strength. If you can get an archaic master artifact or the Taigu Emperor's weapon, as long as you can control them, you can also talk to me like this." Yi Qinghan replied coldly. The fourth form expert was speechless and couldn't refute. Dao Long and Jiang Tian were silent for a long time. They looked at each other and communicated secretly. "I think we can make a trip to the Milky Way. We don't have much time left. If we can't find suitable materials within 10,000 years, we can use the last of our lives to kill Yi Qinghan. At the very least, we can leave a glimmer of hope for our clansmen." Jiang Tian was an experienced schemer. He felt that it was best to control Yi Qinghan in front of him. Otherwise, once Yi Qinghan obtained the suitable materials, he could leave by himself and trap them here. There was nothing they could do. In the end, the only thing that awaited them was death. Dao Long pondered for a long time and felt that Jiang Tian was right. Thus, he nodded and said, "All right, this old man agrees to follow you into the Star River." Dao Spike, push me into the Milky Way. Dao Dragon God General said in a low voice. Whoosh! A young expert appeared behind Dao Long Xinjiang. He was also in the fourth state. His battle prowess was ridiculous. He must have been secretly nurtured by Dao Long Xinjiang, but he didn't use him. Yi Qinghan and Jiang Tian were shocked, but Jiang Tian didn't say much. "Gu He, push me into the Milky Way." Jiang Tian looked at the last fourth form expert of the Ancient Immortal clan and said in a low voice. "Yes, old ancestor." Gu He and Dao Spike pushed the wheelchairs of the two experts at the same time, waiting for orders. Dao Long Xinjiang looked at the hatred between the three clans and reminded in a low voice, "Your Highness Yi, since we are working together, I hope you can restrain your clansmen. Don't kill the Ancient God clan while our experts are not around." Jiang Tian also stared at Yi Qinghan, hoping to get a definite answer. Yi Qinghan glanced at Yen Chong and the other elders behind him. The light in his eyes dimmed as he said in an indifferent voice, "Elders, don't make any rash moves before I return. Everything is predestined, let nature take its course." Yen Chong and the others immediately bowed. Dark Dancer tiptoed behind Yi Qinghan and whispered, "Take me with you. Actually, I'm quite familiar with the mysteries of space. I've also tried to figure out how to go back, but I got stuck on something and didn't succeed." Yi Qinghan didn't want to take her, but at this moment, Dao Long Xinjiang said firmly, "Take her. She must go." Yi Qinghan frowned and stared at Dao Long Xinjiang. Why must she go? Dao Long Xinjiang's eyes flashed cunningly, then he smiled and said indifferently, Your Highness Yi is smart, why ask me? Hiss. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and snorted in his heart. Without saying anything else, he grabbed Dark Dance and flew into the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dao Spike and Gu he pushed Dao Long Xinjiang and Jiang Tian Xinjiang at the same time. The 6 of them flew out of the Milky Way and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Outside the Yen clan, everyone was filled with killing intent. The ancient gods and ancient immortals no longer had any experts, but the Yen clan still had 3 elders. Although Yi Qinghan ordered them not to act recklessly, there were still some things that had to be done. For example, the Yen clan women who had been captured by the ancient gods and ancient immortals. Capture them. Capture them alive. If they dare to resist, just cripple them. Yen Chong waved his hand and all the experts from the Yen clan rushed up and started to beat up the ancient gods and ancient immortals. Some third-degree realm experts wanted to resist, but they were beaten up by the 3 elders until they couldn't even recognize their own mothers. The ancient gods and ancient immortals had been strong their whole lives, but they didn't expect that they would be beaten to the point where they didn't even dare to fight back. Yen Chong and the rest brought the captives into the 2 clans' main camp and threw them into the prison, rescuing the tens of thousands of Yen clan captives. Yen Chong and the rest didn't expect that these captives were still alive. Many of them were elites of the Yen clan who had gone missing while on a mission. It had been many years, and everyone thought that they were dead. They didn't expect that they were now covered in blood and had shocking wounds. It was as if they had been tortured or studied by the ancient gods and ancient immortals. Many Yen clan women had become slaves. They were unyielding and would rather die than submit. They were shackled and tortured for many years. Yen Chong and the rest could still control their emotions, but the Yen clan youths couldn't. They raised their blades and left, wanting to kill all the ancient gods and ancient immortals captives. However, Yi Qinghan's orders still revolved around Yen Chong and the rest, so the 3 elders didn't dare to let them act recklessly. Don't forget His Highness's orders before he left. You can beat them, but you can't kill them. Yen Chong immediately reminded them. The Yen clan had almost lost their minds, but when they thought of Yi Qinghan, they immediately calmed down. Seeing the many beautiful ancient gods and ancient immortals, they immediately captured them. I'll give you a taste of your own medicine. Take away all these beautiful fairies and goddesses. We should also have a taste of the ancient gods and ancient immortals. A few middle-aged experts who were full of vigor sneered. The humiliation the Yen clan had suffered these years was far more than this. If they didn't even have the heart to take revenge, then the Yen clan was too lacking in courage. The ancient gods and ancient immortals women were all elites. At this time, it was their turn to be frightened. The elders of the Yen clan didn't stop them. More and more Yen clan members participated in capturing the ancient gods and ancient immortals. However, at this moment, Yi Qinghan and the rest were far away from this planet. They didn't know what was happening there. Otherwise, the 2 archaic supremes would have been angered to death. The eternal universe was boundless. Only the heavenly Tao knew what was hidden in the Milky Way. The moment Dao Long and Jiang Tian entered the Milky Way, they were filled with vigilance. This was because when they were at their strongest, they had experienced the Milky Way and encountered some terrifying Milky Way beasts. Some of these Milky Way beasts were as big as stars. They were usually in a static state, floating in the Milky Way like stars. If someone accidentally stepped on a Milky Way beast, they wouldn't even know how they died. Chapter 2708. Yi Qinghan and Wu and the others entered the Milky Way, led by the 2 immemorial paragons. They went deep into the Milky Way to find suitable stars and refine them into powerful space-time boundary monuments. However, this was a slow process. At this moment, the Void Ridge was in chaos. Only 5 of the 6 Overgod inheritors had appeared, but because of the battle outside Xingliang Mountain, 4 of them had disappeared. Dao Master and the other Overgod inheritors' assistants and Divine General inheritors had all disappeared. Yi Chenxing and Chu Shijun did not enter the boundary monument either, because Jingfan Mountain Master had still managed to enter it. She recognized that it was a boundary monument of no return and stopped the two. 20 years after the three of them returned to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley, the Void Ridge was in chaos. It was easy to explain the disappearance of the divine general inheritors, but 4 overgod inheritors had disappeared at once. Someone would definitely investigate. After 10 years of investigation, the Void Ridge discovered that Yi Qinghan had also disappeared. Some people even connected the disappearance of the heirs of the ancient overgods to Yi Qinghan. Now, 8 of the 12 emperors of the ancient age had appeared. The rest had yet to appear, but these 8 top experts stood at the top of the food chain. For some reason, they had joined forces to head to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley to investigate whether Yi Qinghan's disappearance had anything to do with the disappearance of the ancient age Master God's inheritors. There were many experts, and they had fought for so many years. The weak had been eliminated, and only the fittest had survived. The Crazed Manor was no longer a simple Crazed Manor. With Jingfan Mountain and the Qingzuan Immortal Kingdom, no one dared to barge into the Jiangnan Immortal Valley alone. Therefore, the 8 emperors' inheritors arrived at the Jiangnan Immortal Valley at the same time. Their auras shook the sky, and the emperor's techniques rumbled. Yi Chenxing hid in the Immortal Valley, and Hualing Tian did not appear. The rest of the Crazed Manor came out to welcome them. Jian Chenxue held the immemorial yin-yang sword and broke the order, leading the experts of the Crazed Manor. She was the model of the world, and her pure eyes shone brightly, giving the experts a great pressure. Jian Chenxue had almost never fought before. In the beginning, he had been taking care of Wang Shi and Yi Mengxi. Later on, he had been in seclusion. His hands were not stained with blood, but he was able to lead the Crazed Manor. No one was dissatisfied with him. Emperor Yi followed him silently. Supremacy Yi wretchedly ran out with a sloppy look on his face. This guy didn't even need to go through the tribulation to reach the 4th state. He was far ahead of the experts of the Crazed Manor. However, his combat strength was still inferior to some of the older generation of the Crazed Manor. After all, Lin Wutian, Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and the others had gained their combat experience by risking their lives. Yan Yunbei, Heaven's Equal Monkey King, Desolate Lord Yi, Stan Wuxie, and the other top experts from the Crazy Manor appeared. They stood around the Jiangnan Immortal Valley while standing on one of the start-winding vines. Jingfan Mountain Master and District Master stood on the left and right sides of the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. Their wise eyes flashed with a cold light, but they did not make a move. At this time, Jian Chenxue looked at Mu Juefeng and the others and asked in a deep voice, "What brings you to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley? Since when did a woman like her have the right to speak up for Kuang Fu? Ask Yi Qinghan to come out and talk to me," Mu Juefeng said coldly. Jian Chenxue's jade-like fingers moved the sword hilt, and the immemorial yin-yang sword appeared. A ray of cold light shot into the sky with a murderous aura. Does the Emperor's inheritance speak without thinking? Or do you think that there is no one in the Crazy Manor that you can trample on? Although Jian Chenxue rarely fought, her temperament had been nurtured for countless years. She was a mother of the world and intimidated all heroes. Whoosh! Mu Juefeng soared into the sky, shooting out rays of immortal light and majestic Emperor's aura. Immemorial yin-yang, number 1 of all time. It depends on who has it. Don't use it to scare me. Mu Juefeng soared into the sky and looked down at the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. He wanted to find out if Yi Qinghan was there. At this time, another emperor's inheritance stepped out. It was a young supreme, the successor of the Shao Emperor, one of the 12 immemorial emperors. At this moment, he looked disdainfully at everyone with a jade-like appearance. A wisp of his belt swayed in the wind, giving off an indescribable feeling. Shao Emperor's inheritance, Supreme Cloud. Greetings, Dao friend. We did not come here with evil intentions. We just want to see Yi Qinghan and ask him to come out and meet us. The young Supreme Cloud saluted the Taigu Emperor. He was so handsome that he could conquer all the beauties in the world. However, Jian Chenxue was not interested. Her beauty was more inclined towards Yi Qinghan's domineering and wild nature. she said indifferently. My husband went out to train and hasn't returned yet. You can leave now. In my opinion, he didn't go out to train, but was killed by 4 immemorial Master God's inheritors. Mua Juefeng was almost certain that the immemorial Master God's inheritors had joined forces to kill Yi Qinghan. Therefore, they wanted to take the opportunity to uproot the rising power of the crazy manor. Ha, ha, are you trying to make me laugh to death so that you can inherit my land? Supreme Yi suddenly laughed out loud. Mua Juefeng was stunned. Then he realized that Supreme Yi had taken advantage of him. He immediately flew into a rage and was about to attack Supreme Yi, who was standing on the peak to the left of the Immortal Valley's entrance. You're courting death. Mua Juefeng was furious. He attacked with the Emperor's scripture. Mua Juefeng's divine scripture covered a radius of 1,000 miles. The ordinary people were so shocked that they did not dare to speak. The immemorial yin-yang sword was completely unsheathed. The sword pointed to the void and seized the might of heaven and earth. Jian Chenxue raised the Emperor's sword and said coldly, Mountain Lord Juefeng, before you do anything, you should consider whether you can bear the price. Even if you make baseless guesses, you have to give everyone a reason to believe you. However, Supreme Ye's words have basis. Supreme Ye was not afraid of Mua Juefeng at all. He grinned and said, Don't you want to inherit my land? Why are you trying to make me laugh to death? Everyone in the world knows that I am boss's spiritual pet. The boss dies, how can I live alone? Otherwise, I wouldn't be so spirited right now. Since boss isn't dead, it means that he wasn't besieged by the primordial Master God's inheritors. A total of 4 primordial Master God's inheritors have gone missing. Dao Sovereign, Su Tianya, Thunder Emperor, and 1 primordial Master God's inheritor have gone missing. 4 primordial Master God's inheritors have joined forces with primordial Master God's artifacts. Sai, who in the world do you think can resist the 4 of them? Not to mention, there's also a divine general's inheritor assisting them. In any case, my boss can't do it. The owner covered his mouth and laughed. There were not many who dared to take advantage of Mua Juefeng. However, what Supreme Yi said was true. Yi Qinghan could not resist the 4 immemorial Master God's inheritors working together. There were not many people in the world who could do it. Supreme Cloud, Mua Juefeng, and the other Emperor's inheritors were surprised. They had doubts in their hearts. Yi Qinghan might really be as Su Tianya said. He was really the Yen clan's inheritor and had the human sovereign ancestral artifact, the human Dao Emperor's pagoda. With the Yen ancestor's arm and the human Dao Emperor's pagoda, it was not impossible for him to kill the 4 immemorial Master God's inheritors. The Emperor's inheritors did not come here with good intentions. They wanted to eliminate the biggest force in the Void Ridge. There were many big shots in the Crazy House, and they were all people with monstrous cultivation and unparalleled combat power. There were more than 10 of them in the 3rd degree, and the rest were in the 2nd degree. Half of the great army kings had reached the big shot realm. Coupled with the immemorial yin-yang sword, they were enough to lead the world. No one wanted to see the birth of such a force. Mua Juefeng and the others looked at each other and nodded. Their right hand pressed on the Emperor's sword and Emperor's weapon, and killing intent burst out. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.